Well, Tim, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, mate. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good, very
You've
good.
got a rather good beard there.
Thank you very much. I didn't have a shave this morning.
That's just with this morning's
That's just
growth.
This morning's growth. Yeah.
But I was just saying before you arrived that it would be probably quicker for us to go through the things that you don't do.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Because we, around here, you're famous for your... Well, we'll just get the baked potatoes out of the way. You make world-famous baked potatoes.
Of course.
And literally, people do come from all over the world.
Yeah.
Because I was looking through your Facebook on the potato spuds page, and there's like literally Chinese people, American people, Australian,
Indian, New Zealand.
They come once, and then they always remember it, don't they, when they come back?
Yeah.
And then there's other people who just discover it by accident.
Yeah.
There's loads. I saw loads of that.
Yeah.
But it's great because I'm looking at you established 1996, 22 years. Wow.
I know it's hard to believe I'm that old, isn't it?
I know. Started when you were one. But yeah, 1996. So
1996. That's when we sold everything we owned.
yeah, because you're from Birmingham, aren't you?
Yeah. As you can probably tell by this horrendous accent.
So what did bring you up here?
The Spuds, basically.
Oh.
We used to come. Me and my wife, we used to come up here all the time on holiday. So it was like summer holiday, spring holidays, maybe even the autumn holiday. 3 times a year we'd be up here. We used to absolutely love it. And then it was kind of always a dream that we wanted to move up here. And then we got the opportunity to do that. So we basically sort of the one holiday that we had, it was like an Easter holiday. We thought, right, we'll come up, we'll just scout the whole of Cumbria. So that's what we did. Went to all the markets. We spent just 2 weeks up here, going to the markets, going to all the councils.
But did you have a plan before that to roughly what you wanted to do?
No,
at all?
not a clue. No clue.
Well, what did you both do before that?
Well, Lynn worked as a sort of pharmacy technician, and I just worked in a factory. So it wasn't like we were.
You weren't tied to anything.
Yeah. And there was just the two of us then, so it was a bit of a no-brainer. So we looked up, and we kind of had it in our head that maybe the potatoes, because back in those days, they were everywhere. Every street corner had a potato man on it.
Right.
And it was kind of like a sort of Midlandsy thing. And I thought, well, I could do that, a piece of piss. So, like we said, went all around the place looking for things to do, and no one was doing it. Went to every single market, contacted the district council, and they were sort of well up for it. Initially, our first idea was to move to Keswick, because that's where we used to go as tourists.
You get a lot of tourists there, don't you?
And obviously, we were tourists then, so it was like you used to go into the Lake District. So then it was. We couldn't get into Keswick because they wouldn't allow hot food in those days. So we basically got in contact with Eden. They were well up for it. So we went back home, and ahed. I was more up for it than Lynn was. I was really, come on, let's go, let's do it. And she was, and I says, right, well, we'll just put the house on the market and just see what happens. This was, 1996, 95, 96. And the house sold the first weekend. So it was like,
wow,
there's a decision made for you.
Fate in it, pushing you in a certain direction.
Exactly. So it was kind of like, right, so now we need to get
shit. Now we've got to do something.
Now we've got to do it. So we did that, and we basically then sold, because I used to ride motorbikes that's what it was. I was a biker through and through. The first form of transport for me since I was 16 was a motorbike until I was till I moved up here, and then I had to drive a car and become normal, like a normal person.
Still working on that.
Not quite normal. So we then sold my motorbike, and so my motorbike paid for the oven. So it was a GSX 900. That paid for the oven to be made.
Is that still the same one that you use now?
No, I've got the very, very first one was a lot smaller version, but exactly the same as you would know it in town,
right?
But smaller. Whereas this one, it was ever so funny because I'd been doing it with that oven for probably 3 years, and then this lad just happened to be passing through town. He stopped up in Penrith just to top up his bank. He needed some money out of the cash machine, and he was a Geordie lad from over the northeast, and he was like, I've got one of these. He says, but I've never used it. I couldn't find anywhere to put it, so I'm selling it. Do you want it?
There's more fate in it.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it was at a stage where I'd literally just moved from where my first pitch was, which was at the Monument, and at the bandstand, Because where I'm stood now, that used to be a two-way street. You wouldn't. I don't know if you remember that or not.
No, but it was before my time. But I do remember. I've seen pictures of it.
By Burton.
Yeah, it's really narrow.
Yeah,
and if that was now, it'd be like, oh my god,
it'd be horrendous. So where I'm actually stood used to be the road, and you can see there's two sort of different types of sort of pavement where I am. There's the sandstone bit, and then there's the bit where I am.
Yeah. And you've never been in any other location?
No,
always been
just there. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was at a time when I'd literally just moved from the bandstand to where I am now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, things had really started to sort of take hold because it was just a far, far better position. You know, it's literally location. It's a massive, massive difference. So then this guy, almost within like 2 weeks of me moving, suddenly appeared to offer me this bigger and better version of what I've already got.
Did the council have any say on where you could and couldn't go?
Yeah, they have designated pitches where you can and can't go. So they're all taken now. So there was the bandstand as it was. There was opposite where I am now, where Lynn has her ice cream stall.
In the summer,
Yeah, because there used to be another fella that had the ice cream.
I vaguely remember that.
So there was that pitch, and then there was where Karen has got her coffee stall, and that was the only three things. Since then, they've had. You can still get the bandstand one, which is kind of like that's what's the best way to describe it? Like a sort of flowing one, so people can sort of have it for a day. And
right. It's a temporary sort of thing. Yeah.
And then there's the guy that's got the new coffee stall up by the
other end of town. Yeah.
So and as far as I know, that's all the.
And that's been you for 22 years, then?
Yeah. So it's been.
So you must have seen some sights in that time.
Oh, mate.
Because every time something happens in town, you're there.
I'm just there. And it's like a lot of the time you just wouldn't. I once had this fella. It was about 6 months ago, and I was going to post it on Facebook, and I keep forgetting to. But it come up.
This is the best place to do it. Then,
well, yeah. And he was all. So what are you selling? I was all potatoes. He's all, oh, right. And he's all, what? So you can actually eat them. So, no, mate, you're going to put them on your sideboard and just look at them.
You go bowling with them.
It's just like, and then once someone asked me if they'd swap a potato for a tin of sweet corn. It's like, what? You could not write it. You couldn't write it. And I've had, well, you've seen some of my posts, you know, with me on horseback, me with the llama.
You've had some celebrities? There's some celebrities, or I know some notable people passing through.
Yeah, I can't think who now.
Uh-oh.
Did you get that?
I hope that came out on the audio. That's brilliant. Normally I'll be telling you to turn that shit off, but keep that on. That's brilliant.
Is that a potato emergency coming through?
There's a literal potato emergency somewhere.
That's the phone. It's the potato phone. I've got to go. Sorry, folks.
I was supposed to say phone's on silent, but I'll let you off. Oh, that's brilliant.
I'll put it on silent now. That was just.
He did it on purpose.
I did.
He's like, when 5 minutes in, give me a text.
Lynn,
potato!
Right. I'll turn it off.
Oh, that is brilliant. But yeah, 22 years. So that's like half your life nearly.
Yeah, well, it is, yeah. You think I'm 50 now, so.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much half my life has
Are
been.
you both similar age?
Yeah, Lynn's obviously younger.
Yeah,
you are younger. Aren't you? No, she is. Yeah, she's younger.
Ah, brilliant.
So, but yeah, it's been
22 years. I mean, is there anything left from 22 years ago? Businesses? I mean, like, there's a few that, because this is an old town where we live, like old.
There's been a hell of a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of changes.
I bet, yeah.
A massive amount of changes. But you'd be surprised how many businesses are still sort of going. More the old sort of family name sort of businesses.
Yeah, well, that's nice to see, isn't it? Supporting local businesses.
And that's what the tourists love when they come, because obviously I'm smack in the middle of town.
They don't want chains, do they?
No. And they love the fact that Penrith is old and quirky. And
I love the fact that they leave the old names on the old buildings from years ago.
That's what people love.
Over 100 years ago.
People
are taking photos, aren't they?
They are, and they love Arnison's, and they go, oh, look at that over there. And then they look at Graham's, and they go, oh, look at that. And they're taking photos of the telephone box by me. And it's kind of like taking photos of me. And it's
yeah. Because you get Americans coming over and like, oh, God, they actually have history here.
Yeah, it's true. It's not a Disney park. It's real.
This was from over 100 years ago. Surely not. Nobody was alive then.
It's funny because there's a on the bench by me. There's like a big sort of sign, isn't there? And it says Penrith, and it's like
I keep meaning to read it. I've not read
it.
it.
Of them all, and it's basically little bits of blurb about the town and the surrounding area. But there's a really, really nice picture from about 1902, of like where I'm stood and looking.
Back in 1902.
Yeah, well, that's what I say to people when they're looking there. And if I think they're all right, I go, "You see that fella there? That's my great granddad, and he used to sell potatoes, and I'm still carrying on." And they go, "No way!" And I say,
Fourth generation, don't you know?
Yeah, don't be fooled by the accent.
So for our audio listeners, what are you drinking?
What
is the drink
that
today?
is Teacher's today. Teacher's Holland Cream.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Nice drink of choice.
It is. Yeah. Any whiskey will do. If there's any sponsors listening, it's just doesn't have to be Teachers. Any Lafrogue is one of my favourite tipples. So
the other reason I wanted to talk to you is about heavy metal.
heavy rock.
Because obviously,
yeah.
that's when I first came here, which was in 98, 99. That's
Was it?
Yeah.
You've been here that long?
Yeah, I
as
remember
well? Wow.
talking to you. I think I must have had a Metallica t-shirt on or something.
You must have, yeah.
We just got talking.
Yeah.
I always remember you told me that you like bought Kill 'Em All, their first album when it
Yeah,
came out. You
yeah.
actually remember that?
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Well,
You're like prime
going,
age for that.
I was going back through all my sort of ticket stubs that we had then. I mean, and I remember seeing, would it have been Kill 'Em All in 1980? It was 1985 or 1986, and it was Metallica at the Birmingham Odeon.
Well,
and
if it was 85, then it's Ride the Lightning. If it was 86, it could have been Master of Puppets. And that would have been one of the last times with Cliff Burton.
Yeah, because it was definitely Cliff Burton. So I think it was 85 actually. And it was because did they tour Europe on the Kill 'Em All?
No,
I don't think they did
no,
they?
didn't, just North America.
Because they became bigger.
It was because when Ride the Lightning signed to
Ride the
a
Lightning
major
was-
label,
yeah,
so then
yeah,
they obviously
yeah.
started going to Europe and stuff,
Yeah.
festivals and that.
And that was ace because it was like Metallica and Anthrax. Anthrax was supporting, and it was just it was amazing.
God, in 85, that
85, and it was at a place where you couldn't quite stage dive. I've got some stories about some gigs I've been to later where you could actually still get on the stage and proper stage dive out. There was no security at all. That goes
for most things back then.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. But it was just what a day. It's one of, there's certain things that you remember, and it was kind of like when I was, because I've always loved music, because obviously I'm a drummer, so that doesn't mean I'm a musician, but I'm a drummer, so I can appreciate music.
Yeah.
So when one of the first things I've always like music has been part of my life.
As long as you can remember.
Yeah. And even now, you could bin the telly off. I don't care about the telly, but the first thing I'll do when I come in the house is put the radio on or put Spotify on.
Yeah.
It's music is my first love. Is plain and simple.
After your wife, of course.
Obviously, and then my daughter, and then my dog.
Yeah.
So,
I know what you mean.
But you know what I'm saying. I couldn't live without music. I can happily live without television.
Same here.
But not music. And it was kind of like back in the sort of 70s and early 80s. It's a different time. So all we had was Top of the Pops on a Thursday night.
Of course, yeah.
And the Friday Rock Show with Tommy Vance on a Friday night from 10 till midnight. And it was like classic sort of stuff. So you had to wait for those two things. Now prior to that, I remember like we used to like Status Quo and maybe Rainbow Since You've Been Gone, that sort of stuff. And we'd be giving it all this at the school disco. Since You've Been Gone. And then the once on Top of the Pops, Motorhead came on, the Ace of Spades. It was like
game changer.
Oh my God.
Absolute game changer.
It's like at school the next day, it was like, fucking hell.
Everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
It's weird because for everybody it was the same outlet for all music and all news and everything that's new. Everyone was getting it by the same way, either magazines, TV, or radio. That's it. So you all followed the same path and had the same things to talk about.
There was no MTV and obviously no internet. There was nothing. It was literally the radio, which was Radio 1, which was... There was Radio 2, which was basically Terry Wogan and sort of safe, middle-of-the-road stuff that your mum and dad had listened to. And then there was Radio 1, which was... It would chuck the odd sort of curveball in.
If someone got in the charts, it would chuck it out,
and I think that's when maybe the Ace of Spades must have got into the charts.
Yeah, it did.
and that's why it was on, and it's probably mimed,
I
but
can't
it was
remember
still
that was it like 80 or something like that. Was it before
79,
that?
78
Yeah, that
maybe.
was around then. Yeah.
It was kind of like, because we'd just gone through that sort of punk stage.
Yeah.
When
Were
obviously
you into that or not?
I was a little bit too young. I was into it, but mainly because my mates' brothers.
How old have you been in 1980?
In 1980, I was 13, 12, 13.
Right, yeah. So if you'd been about 16, 17, then it would have been right young.
Yeah,
so.
I'd have been like full on.
Which is why you were at the right age for like in the early 80s, sort of the thrash movement that
and
came
that's
out.
what, and that's what kind of like just floated my boat. It was just because I've always I love all sorts of music. Don't get me wrong. I've got such an. If anyone goes onto my Spotify list after listening to this, you'll see I'll listen. And I've got lists for absolutely all sorts because you don't want to listen to thrash metal 24/7.
No, definitely not.
There's times and a place. And when I was sort of 15, 16, 17 and older, that was just amazing. It was just such power and rawness, and it was like
just something new, wasn't it?
It was
You'd never heard anything
it
like
was great. It was we'd gone from. I mean, we were into Sabbath, Zeppelin, all the sort of Rainbow, the classic sort of rock stuff, British rock stuff, and then there became the new wave of British heavy metal, didn't there? So there was
Diamond Head and
and
Motorhead
Saxon and Iron Maiden, and
yeah.
I mean, mine and Lynn's, the first date I took Lynn on was to a Saxon concert.
Brilliant.
At the,
so was she into all that as well?
Yeah, she's kind of.
Oh, cool.
She's more into Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi's then, Europe's, the more of the. But she liked Barclay James Harvest, Marillion. She liked a lot more, and she loved a lot of Rainbow stuff and Yes and all that sort of stuff, So it was kind of like we worked well. I was a full-on metal thrash head, and she was the more subtle.
Just sort of balance each other out.
Yeah. So she never came to any of my concerts, but I've had to sit through a couple of hers, which were.
It's funny, it all seems to work that way. So relationships, so you compromise, and you end up doing what she wants to do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, but I want to go see him. All right, darling.
But you went to see Europe recently, didn't you?
And actually, you know what? I've seen them twice, and they're absolutely spot on. They're
They
really
must be
good.
a fair age now.
Yeah, they're in the 50s, but they can still rock it out, and they're actually
older than that. Because Metallica are in their 50s.
No, I'm sure he's only maybe mid to late 50s. I'm sure they
60s, but
no,
it's one of them bands that have been going forever.
Well, that's it. I mean, because you look back at the time, and you don't realise they were only like 2 or 3 years older than you were
at the time.
At the time, and it's like now you look at them and you can. Then they were kind of like. Because they were in Metal Hammer and Kerrang magazine and things like that, and it's like, oh my god, and it's like, and then now you're kind of like on not their level, so to speak, but you know what I mean.
You've grown with
kind
them.
Of the gap seems to have closed somewhat. So
well, if you're a similar age to them, they look way older than you. They've all got like the white hair or the no hair. Or the
a lot of them have got no hair anymore, haven't they? I mean, I haven't done my hair, that's why I've got this into it.
There's a lot of those bands that are still going. I'm surprised in like Europe and all that.
I mean,
do you know how many of the original members are still in that band?
All of the original members are still in.
Wow,
and
that's rare.
Yeah, isn't it? They still get on, and they were still. I mean,
must only be able to count on one hand the amount of bands that have been going 30 years or more that've still got all the original members.
Yeah, I'd say. Definitely.
I wish we had internet in here. That's one thing, like getting to look stuff up while we're talking about it.
But I mean, I went to see this time last year. We were in. We went to Berlin to watch a band called Halloween. I don't know if you've ever heard of Halloween.
Yeah.
And because Lynn was majorly into that. It's funny. She used to like the bands with good-looking lead singers with big hair. I don't know what all that about. But now,
Did you ever have long hair? Did you ever have long hair?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to get some pictures of that.
Tattie.
Brilliant.
So it was, but he's actually bald now. But that band's, apart from the drummer who died, and they had a swap of lead singers, that band was still, still.
What's
still
Journey's? What's Europe's biggest song?
Final Countdown.
Countdown. Yeah. I always get them Journey in Europe mixed. I don't know why I stick it there. But yeah, Final Countdown.
Final Countdown. But they're actually quite sort of rocky and a bit more sort of blues rocky. They're not bad actually. They're actually. When I heard the one album, I think it's what's it called? Bag of Bones, and it's a good album. It's a real kind of rocky, good sort of rocky hard rock. It's not metal, but it's like hard rock album. You know what I mean? So
what was the first gig you ever went to?
Actually, Buddy Rich.
Right. Okay. You got to start somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, that's when I was kind of like just getting into, and I was only about 10 at the time.
Right.
So it was the first sort of concert I went to, and that just blew me away because he was such a
Plenty good. Was it in Birmingham?
yeah.
There's plenty
yeah.
of venues in Birmingham. aren't
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Plus, you're from the home of metal, Birmingham.
Well,
Black
yeah,
Sabbath
yeah,
and all that.
Sabbath. I used to drive past Ozzy's house on the way to work when I used to work in Aston. So
Aston, yeah.
so it was it's kind of like if you're a Brummer, you've got to be into rock.
Has your accent changed since you left there? Do you think it's got more less broad?
I
or-
think so. I mean, probably people might be listening to this now and go thinking, no way, sounds like he's right out of bloody Peaky Blinders. But I don't think, I probably sound less brummy than I did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's funny, because when I get a customer and they're from Birmingham and you'll go, oh, where are you from, and blah, blah, blah. And then you can hear yourself sounding like more.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
Because you
I'm
must
from
have.
I'm from Newcastle.
Yeah, and you
And
must
every
sound,
time I go home or if I talk to someone on the phone, it's like, all right, well, aye,
Yeah,
no bother,
yeah.
no bother.
and I can hear like, oh, that's 5p, and it's like, So, no, you can. It's weird, isn't it? How you sort of just.
Well, some people's accents never change at
like
all wherever
Scottish
they go.
people. There's a
They're
friend.
broad.
Yeah, there's a guy I went to school with from. We were at school from infant school, and I must have known him since he was about 3. And he was like, so he'd moved from Scotland to Birmingham, and his mum and dad were Scottish. So he had this broad Scottish accent, and he'd never really lived in Scotland, and he still doesn't. He lives in Cornwall or Devon now, and he's kind of like, you'd think he was from like the middle of Glasgow if you heard him speak. It's just amazing how.
Some people can live somewhere for 5 minutes, and their
it's like,
accent just
boom.
adapts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know what that says
No.
about a person. Like,
No.
it's one of the-
Yeah, there must be a word for it somewhere on the internet.
But the Brummie accent's probably one of the most recognisable, up there with probably Geordie and Scouse, I would say.
Probably, and you sound the dumbest, don't you, if you're a
I don't
Brummie?
know.
It's
I
like,
don't know.
all right.
There's the West Country as well.
Yeah, that is
All
true.
right, my lover.
all right, sweetheart.
But yeah, so when did you first start going to like rock and metal gigs then?
Rock and metal gigs, I'd say, when I was. So when I left school, when I started earning money, so
What was your first job?
left school at 15, YTS.
YTS. They don't even have them anymore. do
No,
they?
25 quid a week. Can you imagine kids living on that now?
What, an hour now?
Exactly.
Get out of bed for that.
So it was 25 quid a week, YTS, and it was kind of like a general sort of building. So there was a bit of plumbing, bit of bricklaying, bit of painting and decorating, and you just literally went round town as in Birmingham, and we just did things for charities. So it was obviously
Right.
like painting churches and
Yeah.
shit like that. So it was
All the stuff that they also get criminals to do on
Yeah.
their community service.
yeah, well, that's what it must have looked like.
God, criminals are getting younger and younger around here.
All these little 15-year-old kids like painting and decorating, thinking we were.
Wonder what
Cool.
he did.
Yeah. So it must have been then. So, but it's surprising how much you could make 25 quid last then.
Back
You know what I
then,
mean?
yeah.
You know, literally.
You got it for a couple of pints, like a round. Gone.
Yeah. Now
Gone.
it would be. I was in Dublin a couple of weekends ago. 2 drinks, me and mate, 20 euros, 2 pints of Guinness. It's like, fucking hell.
Wow, that hurts. That's the wallet.
So it was quite a sober weekend, that was.
Drink quite narrow.
So,
Hard on the bank balance.
so I'm trying to think, and I didn't think about who my first one was. It was probably...
Because everybody,
I wrote
obviously, all the
down-
cities, everyone goes through all the cities, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're ample
I
choice.
wrote down a lot, so I'm pretty sure it was probably
There's the
Venom.
first guest who's brought his own notes
Yeah, am I?
in 41 episodes.
No way.
Yeah.
Well,
Some people have written things down before we start, like if they want to remember stuff
But
they don't
I'm
want to forget
probably
about.
the oldest guest you've had on, I so
Oh. I
So,
don't know,
you know,
Tom
memories-
Corder Stanley from Plug and Play, we've had him
Yeah.
on. Is
I
he
think Tom's younger than me.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just me.
Maybe.
It was an age thing, and I
Well, we
thought,
had. I don't know how old Ben Chalice is from Glastonbury Festival. He was around that age.
yeah,
wasn't
he didn't look that old.
No, he didn't.
Did he?
I just
No.
I'm trying to think.
So
No, you could be.
I think I'm quite.
You look good for it, though.
Yeah, thank you very much. You still got your paper spuds. I'd say Venom. Yeah, I'm
Venom?
pretty sure Venom was my first one,
Wow.
and then that was at the Odeon, And then it was funny because the Birmingham Odeon, that was the gig place in town.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like,
Because that was the biggest then.
yeah, apart from the NEC, there wasn't an
okay.
in between. Do you know what I mean? So, and I don't think the NEC.
Did bands do that then?
No, not as much. I know Metallica. The next time Metallica came, it was at the NEC. At the NEC, there was the main arena itself.
Yeah.
And then there was like a little sort of mini arena.
Okay, right.
And I remember seeing Dio there once, and that was really good because it wasn't stupidly big.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
You know, because
Much better to see them at a smaller one, isn't
yeah,
it?
far better.
Because when you look back, that's when you realise, God, I saw that person in a small venue.
Yeah, and you literally, you know, with as far away as me and you are,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow. It's like, because I remember there was, I'll tell you this story now. There was the Odeon, and then for some reason, I don't know, I mean, I didn't have a clue, but looking back, it must have been some promoter or some manager or something must have been looking for different venues in the city. So he came across a place called the Hummingbird, which was a black club, basically. It was, you know,
Right.
it was a proper known, it was just reggae, dancehall,
right, yeah,
and it
yeah.
was just, you know, it was that. I mean, you'd walk past that place on a Saturday night, and literally the pavement would be like humming and bouncing because of the bass line going
Yeah.
on inside. You
The
know, it was
drums,
like,
yeah.
and it was like, whoa.
Funky.
And it was, and there was this massive rasters always on the door, and you know, it was, unless you were into reggae, you wouldn't even think of going in there. So, and looking back now, I must have been probably the first metal concert that they had there, because I think it was maybe Exodus or
Wow.
Exodus or maybe even Megadeth. I'm not sure. It was kind of, there were these bands that were not quite big.
Yeah,
But
they were
not
just
quite
starting.
little, you know, and you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that time, sort of
Probably the best time to see them.
85, 86, 87, you know, that sort of time. So they all, anyway, they got, the Hummingbird became the venue of choice for these bands, and it was
Right.
great because it literally was just a stage at the far end and like a bar at the other end. A bit like, have you ever been to Barrowlands in Glasgow?
Yeah, yeah.
So a bit like imagine
Okay,
Barrowlands,
right, yeah.
and it was ace. So anyway, say it was Exodus, they came on. The support band come on. No one really gives a shit about the support band. And it's
Yeah.
like, well,
Turns out it was like Iron Maiden or something.
yeah. So we're all getting pissed at the bar. Then the Exodus come on. So obviously everyone's go for it, and then the mosh pit starts, right?
Right, yeah.
So then these black guys, they're you know, to the uninitiated,
They don't know what mosh pits
mosh
are.
pit looks like a fight, doesn't it?
God.
So all these rastas come boodling in from the side, jumping off the stage and everything, trying to break this fight up. The band have to stop. They says, "No, lads, they're dancing," and they must be thinking, "What? That's dancing."
What kind of dancing is this?
Yeah.
Elbow in the face kind of dancing.
Yeah, it's like literally in the face. And it was like, oh, mate. And I was looking back thinking, Jesus Christ, what they must have thought. And then after that, it was just became, what a venue.
It was because it was just like, it was just the right sort of size and everything. The acoustic
it
must
was
have been just right.
perfect. It was absolutely perfect. You could probably get maybe 1,000 people in tops.
Just right,
yeah.
that's a good number.
And it was, and they were usually, you know, rammed. And it was like, but you could get away, you could get out the pit, and you could stand at the back. So there was enough space that you could get out, because it's pretty full on, isn't it? A full night of moshing's pretty full on. But you could still get up on the stage because there was no barrier in front. You were literally
at the front of the stage.
You were at your hands were on the monitors,
Right.
And you were, you know, I remember once I went to see a band called Candlemass.
Oh yeah.
And because they were like really kind of dark, heavy sort of, weren't they? And I'm flicking my hair like I've still got long
Just put it
hair.
on the front if you want. If it's annoying, just put it on the front.
And I remember he put his foot up on the, you know, on the
Oh,
thing,
yeah,
and he was
the
giving
classic
it,
pose.
yeah, giving it loads. So I just grabbed hold of his foot with 2 hands, so he couldn't move, and he was like trying to get away, trying to sit. Oh, we had loads, and because it was funny because even though you're in a city, because you're in that sort of metal
Community sort of thing. Yeah.
It's
And
always-
the smaller venues
yeah,
helps,
yeah.
I think.
And it's always the same. And we had a very limited sort of choice of pubs and clubs to go to because
For the music.
yeah, because it was all so you've always met the same people all the time,
Yeah.
and it was so you kind of got
You became friends with everyone.
you became pally, and it was just a good sort of crack, even though I wouldn't have known what crack was in those days, but it was So we'd get up and and it was to do who could do the silliest thing on stage. So you'd get up on stage and you'd kind of like jig about and then dive back in before the sort of roadies to
security
get hold
got
of you.
here, yeah.
So my favourite was always to pull a moonie. So I'd get up on stage, jig about, look about, then pull my kegs down. But I half the time I never got time to do it. So then I sussed out that I've got to kind of half undo myself before I climb up on stage and then get up. Just shake my head about a bit, way, pull a moonie and dive back in the crowd with the kegs down. So it was just such a laugh. It was just unbelievable. And that was just like, that was to bands like Slayer and Anthrax and, there was all sorts. There was, who else? Sabbath. I used to love Sabbath. Absolutely love Sabbath.
Do you know what I find sometimes though, back in the day, if you even like the old Stubbs, like people didn't care about the support bands, but often the support bands were like bands who went on to be massive.
Yeah.
And you didn't realise at the time.
Because like when I first saw Metallica, I didn't really know who Anthrax were. So it was kind of like, and then I became an Anthrax fan.
Yeah.
I think that must have been
It could have been 86. It could have been 86 that then, because they were touring with Anthrax when Cliff died.
Could it?
Because they did the UK, then they went to Europe, and he died straight as soon as they went to Europe.
Yeah. So it could have been, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
But it was funny because that would have been where Anthrax. There was support. I'm pretty sure they weren't equal billion, weren't they?
No, they wouldn't have been. No.
So they were definitely. So that could have been Spreading the Disease album, couldn't it?
Yeah,
or maybe
could have
pre
been.
that.
Could have been.
They could have got Spreading the Disease.
I'm not as
after
familiar
that.
with that Anthrax's back
you're not.
catalogue. But yeah, it definitely could have been around that time.
It's funny because now I've got because I had loads and loads of albums when I was. It was
on the vinyl.
Yeah, it was.
Did you keep them all? Or did you throw them away when
They're all
CDs came out?
No, they're all in the loft. So I've still got a lot in the loft.
You hear the horror stories of people throwing all the vinyl out.
Mate,
CDs are here. Why would I need these?
Yeah, exactly.
Gone.
But now it's because there's loads. Because you used to take, you take some albums to parties and stuff, and then you'd never get them back because they'd just disappear or get wrecked or get trodden on. So there's a lot of albums that I did have that I no longer have. So when things like Spotify and YouTube and that come out, it was like, oh, this is great. And you spend like hours and hours and hours just going, oh, do you remember this song? Just putting one track.
Remembering old bands.
Yeah, and listening to 30 seconds of it and just being excited because,
it takes you back there, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then you're straight back in it. And it was like, it's unbelievable. So it was, where was we on the albums? It was... I don't know.
Because you must have started buying vinyls
vinyl,
in the early 80s then.
Yeah, vinyl was... We used to go to a place called Reddington's Rare Records.
Right.
And it was...
Reddington's Rare Records.
Yeah, it was like a music shop in Birmingham, and it was just literally... what it says.
Just wall-to-wall vinyl.
Wall-to-wall vinyl.
Because those record stores are the places where they've got imports from other countries.
And that's what they had. And there was all these picture disc, 12-inch picture discs and pink vinyl and red vinyl and different album sleeves. And then there'd be like sort of iconic albums on the walls and stuff. And it was just... And then they'd have the cheap shit albums outside, which were like about...
The bargain bin.
Yeah, £1 or 50p or whatever they were. And you just look through them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the bands you never... Because a lot of bands I got into purely was off their album cover.
I was just going to say, that's one of the reasons why Iron Maiden had a head start, because their artwork was phenomenal. I mean, I had Iron Maiden posters, massive Iron Maiden posters on my wall, and I hadn't heard a single note from any of their songs. You sometimes get them free in a magazine or whatever. So I'll put it on. It's like, this could be 5 years before I heard an Iron Maiden song.
But it's true, you used to go in.
Well, what else did you have to go on?
Nothing.
So...
if you'd missed a Friday Rock show and if you didn't play that particular band...
You missed like a radio show on a Friday, I am knackered.
Once a week. It's like living in Shaft and missing the bus, isn't it? It's like, oh, shit. I have to wait till next week now.
It's preposterous to think what it was like.
Isn't it?
These young'uns today have no idea.
They haven't. They don't know they're born.
If you said to them, imagine there's no internet, so you can't look anything up. No. You've got no phone, so if you're out and about, you've got no communication with anybody.
No.
There's like no video games. Nothing.
It was just you just left your own devices.
Or kids like playing out in the street.
Yeah.
Making your own games up.
Yeah. That's what we used to do. And it was nice. We used to love it. Playing Speedway.
Kids now, if you said that to them, they'd be like,
what?
There was you're just making that up.
Yeah.
There's always been internet, surely. Fucking hell.
It's crazy.
But so your vinyl connections, you kept most of it.
Yeah, I've got...
Have you got some rare gems in there?
Probably not. I think most of those will have gone.
Those are the ones that you lent.
I
and
know
never got
my
back.
mate. He had. He did have the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction, the original
yeah.
cover, because they
They
banned.
changed it
yeah,
straight
they
away.
banned-
Didn't
yeah,
they? There wasn't
yeah.
many.
And because he called me down and he was, oh, come and listen to this band, Guns N' Roses, and because he was.
There's only about 100,000.
Yeah, and he must have been out and got it. He must have listened to it on the rock show, or maybe it was in Kerrang or something like that. And he got it, but he was a bit more. You see, they were a bit too glammy for me back in the day. I like them now.
Yeah, you can appreciate them now.
But in them days,
you were sort of. You picked a team back then, didn't you?
And
not quite on my team. These
yeah,
guys.
you see, they were more Motley Crue-y.
Yeah.
Even though
They were sort of in the middle. I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Looking
'cause,
back-
look at the Welcome to the Jungle video. Axel's got his like boofed up
yeah,
hair.
it was
and
very
it's
much
like,
boofy, wasn't it? And that sort of glam rocky Californian
Yeah.
sort of vibe, wasn't it? And I says, and he was into Kiss and things like that, and I was
Right.
never really into Kiss, you see, either. So I really liked the full on hard and heavy stuff. And I says, oh yeah, and he says, oh look at the album cover, and I says, oh, he says, oh look, they've raped her and this that, and the other. I was like, oh, right. And then a couple of weeks later, it's like, keep your covers because that's being banned, and
Yeah,
you've
they've
got like
reissued it, didn't
and
they?
it was like the back stayed the same, I think, didn't it, with the
Yeah.
cross,
Yeah.
and then
Just the front. I
yeah,
can't
it was
even
just
remember
the
what it.
It was like I think it was like a woman. It was like a cartoony cover, and it was like a woman, cartoony prostitute who'd been sort of raped in this alleyway and killed, and she had a knickers around her ankles and sort of stab
Right.
wounds on, and I think Guns N' Roses were walking away out
Oh,
the
right.
alleyway. I think
can't
it was
remember if I've
along.
seen it
It
or
was
not.
definitely along those lines.
Yeah,
you
you can see back. You can see back then why that would be.
Yeah, when old Mary Whitehouse and her cronies were in charge. See, kids nowadays, they wouldn't understand that either.
No,
It's
I mean,
like-
you want? Do you know? Have you heard of Mary Whitehouse?
No.
He's a lot younger than me, so
Have you heard of what was it, the PCR?
PMRC
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah, they were like, oh, mate. They
You
were
know, do you know Dee Snider of Twisted Sister?
Yeah.
He was. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Have you seen the documentary?
Yeah.
Because
it was Wasp
they
and
were the
that.
ones that it's like what does it stand for? Parents
Something.
something. I can't
So
remember.
there was
It's
some
basically like parents got together to form like a community to sort of like stop things happening to protect their children. They were the ones that got the first parental advisory put on on albums and CDs, but that worked against them because
it did.
it made them. Oh,
Because
it's
you-
got. I mean, it's got swearing on it. I want it.
You
It
wanna
made them
buy it.
more. My album's
You
more
wanna-
desirable because
Yeah.
it had that sticker on
Yeah.
like bands. I'm just
I remember buying
I
that
don't swear,
t-shirt.
but I'm going to put fuck in this song just so I can have it
Just
on my
so
album
that-
cover.
Yeah, and it was true, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You used to go out and look for that.
Yeah,
That was,
you would pop out. You go, that's got swearing in it.
Yeah.
I'll have that.
that was kind of just as MTV was kind of. in
Yeah,
its
same similar.
fledglings,
Sort. I
wasn't
think it was
just
like
starting.
83, 84.
Just starting, wasn't it?
He got called in to talk to Congress to sort of plead the musicians' side of because they were criticising some of his lyrics.
Yeah.
Like is it Under the Blade was one of the songs called?
Could have been.
But he wrote the lyric about the dentist.
Right.
Well, they were obviously, but what he did, he went in typical. He looked like, what's this guy going to do? How is he going to get all this? What's he going to say? He had his prepared notes,
Did he?
2-page. He had his
Bit like me.
jeans on, his hair tied back. Oh, it's on YouTube. You got to watch it.
Right.
And he reads this out, and he just totally wipes the floor with him in this statement that he reads. It's just you've got to watch it. It's cool because no one knows when he's finished speaking. No one knows what to say.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Okay, I think we're done here.
He's just wrapped him in,
Yeah.
wrapped him in knots, didn't he? But it was the same because they had a thing about Wasp as well, didn't they? It was like,
Yeah.
and then
Trying to blame musicians for like violence and deaths.
because there
and
was
all
like a
that.
lot
It's
of sort of
ridiculous.
suicide.
Same thing with video games later on.
Yeah, it was like any
But-
channel that doesn't fit in their little thing. Because Judas Priest, there was a massive thing. with
Oh
Judas
yeah,
Priest,
like
wasn't
that,
there?
yeah.
Massive thing. I saw Judas Priest as well.
I was going to say, yeah, they're Sheffield,
more,
aren't they?
No, they're a black
They
country.
Oh, right, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And he come on stage and it was on this Harley. It was like, whoa! It was like you heard this, vroom, vroom, vroom,
Yeah.
and then it kind of rolls on really slow. But it was funny because it rolled into the
Oh, the song.
guitars, Yeah, I can't think what song it would have been, but it kind of like
I've seen the video. I've seen the live footage.
that was one of our, I think that because Lynn come to that with me as well. So that was one of our sort of second or third.
They do Wheels of Steel.
No, that was Saxon.
That's Saxon, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to think what song that could have been. It goes into. They do
Because-
Denim and Leather, don't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Denim and Leather was a Saxon album, but Judas Priest do. Judas Priest too, because he was mad into his. I reckon he was some sort of kink because he was.
Was
right
he
into
was he
his-
out as gay at the time
I'm
or
not-
not? Did that come out
no,
later?
He must have. Yeah,
Because
it's a bit
it
like-
was unheard of then, wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. And I've been looking back. It's like when you look.
It's
back,
obvious when you look at the videos.
Looking back,
He's gay.
it's like,
No shit, he's gay.
it's like with Freddie and that, and it's like
how gay? He's as gay as it gets.
but at the time, you didn't see it. I mean, even at the time, you didn't.
It was just outrageous, wasn't it? It wasn't
yeah.
like
You didn't
same
even
with
think-
Freddie Mercury in a way.
Yeah,
because he wasn't. I don't think he was when they first got big in the 70s and into the 80s. I don't think he was out as gay at the time. I don't think.
No, he wouldn't have been because it wasn't until almost just before he died, really, that it became sort of common knowledge. Didn't it? But I mean, you look back now,
and it's obvious.
Well, yeah,
Like the "I Want to Break Free" video.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And the moustache and
yeah, it's when he grew the moustache that's what it made him.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just him, isn't it?
In it, yeah.
Seen the film?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was scrolling through your thing. Were you in London when you saw it?
Yeah, I was in London, and it was funny because we were going to go and see. We didn't want to go and see a show, but we said we'd go to the pictures, and they both.
That's the
wanted
cinema
to
for
see.
you young guys.
So, we said they wanted to go and see that one with Lady Gaga, and I would have gone and seen it, but I think it's a remake in it. Star Is Born, is it, or something?
Oh,
like
is that what that is? Right. Yeah.
With Chris, I think Chris Christopherson was in the first one.
I saw it.
years ago. Was it? Is it rubbish? Have you
No,
seen
I mean I saw it advertised.
Oh, right,
it's
right.
Not, it's not for
It
me.
wasn't your cup of tea. So, as it turned out, there was 2 seats left. There was 3 of us, and the 2 seats were kind of at opposite ends of the cinema. I said, "Oh, what you got left for Bo Rap?" And he was all, "Oh yeah, there's loads left." So we went in there, and they both. I mean, I knew Lynn would love it, but my daughter, she absolutely loved it as well. It was just like.
Did you have an opinion on Queen before that or not?
Obviously, she's heard them. She knows all the songs because, like I said, there's music on. She's only ever known music.
Yeah.
You know, one of her favourite songs was "Master of Puppets" when she was about 3. Used to put it on in the car to make her go to sleep, but she used to wake up and go.
I don't want her to get into pop. I don't want her to get into pop, so I'll put this on.
So, but she thought it was fantastic, and it is. What a film!
It is.
It is phenomenal.
I've even got over the sort of factual inaccuracies of it now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people
it makes sense. It makes sense.
A lot of people have gone on about that and said this, that, and the other. But I mean, it was
The
just
band have endorsed the film, and for me, if it's okay with them, it's okay with me.
Exactly. So,
It would be. Well, it's the same with like even completely fictional films. If they or the ones that are based on true stories where they change things.
Yeah.
But if they told it exactly how it was, it wouldn't be a film.
Boring as hell, wouldn't it? So, I mean, like I watched that one with what's his name? Neil Armstrong. Is it called The First Man? It's quite recent, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen that. No, that
I
looks
don't
quite good.
bother. It sounds good, but it's boring because it's factual.
It's too
Do you know what I
factual.
mean? And it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like you're sitting there and you think, yep.
That's the other end
And
of the
then
scale.
it's got-
You go to those critics and you go, there you go, there's a film that's
Yeah,
actually factual.
yeah.
We didn't change anything. And
Yeah,
it's,
and
it's
it was
boring.
kind of like, and then, but apparently at the end it was pretty good. But I won't tell you
Apparently.
that. Apparently landed.
Did you walk out? Did you walk
No,
out?
I just fell asleep.
Serious?
Yeah.
I've never fallen asleep in the cinema, I don't think. Have you?
You're not.
No.
Oh, mate, you don't.
I don't think I've seen a film that.
Is that bad?
Probably Titanic was the closest I've ever come to falling asleep.
I've walked out of a play.
But I was on a date, so I couldn't fall
Was you?
asleep. I don't know, you wouldn't fall asleep. I can't remember if it was a first date or not. But it's brilliant.
What was it? What was the film?
Oh, Titanic.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
Titanic, all
When I
right.
saw Titanic, I was on
Oh,
a date, so
yeah.
that's the closest film I was like... I mean, I've seen it again since, and
Yeah.
I didn't mind it, because
No.
I was paying more attention to, like... I knew more of the history of it.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
I first saw it,
Yeah.
I was just like, this is just not for me.
Yeah.
But
And it is quite a long film,
It
as
is
well,
a
to be
long
honest.
Oh, yeah. It had an
a
interval.
break. You should have had a break, yeah.
No, it did
Yeah.
have. When I had it,
Right, yeah.
there was like a
yeah.
15-minute interval, because it was like
Yeah.
nearly 3 hours
Yeah,
long.
it's a 3-hour epic, isn't it? So,
I think it was it was 99, so
yeah.
at the time it was like a long...
Yeah.
I'd never... No, they didn't need to do for like an hour and a half was like the time of a film.
That's 90 minutes is your
Yeah.
film, innit? Anything under 90 minutes is usually a crap film, innit? It's like...
Because they used to base it on like what pop music does. 3 minute, 3 minute.
Yeah.
That's the attention
Yeah.
span of the average
So I
person.
suppose-
It isn't really. It's
I
just
suppose that must be like the Bohemian Rhapsody of the film world, then, wasn't it, Titanic?
yeah, because I mean,
Wasn't it?
who would have thought? I mean, if you gave that when all the radio station bosses got that song, okay, you want us to play this?
Yeah.
How are we gonna? It's like
Yeah.
we could fit 3 songs in normally in that
exactly.
one.
Because
but
even nowadays, there's not long
never get that.
songs, is there?
No.
I mean, I listen to Planet Rock a lot, and they've got 2 particular shows, haven't they?
Hmm.
The long. I think they call it the long song show or something.
Oh, right, like an extended play sort of thing.
And they'll play
the full versions of everything.
Full versions of.
I hate it when on the radio.
Yeah.
If you happen to listen to like a commercial radio station and they play like an amazing song and you go like if they play November Rain or something.
Yeah.
My favourite bit of Remember Rain is that end bit with the piano, and they never play it. It fades out and you go.
I had
crying.
Freebird on the radio the other day. Just as a guitar solo
Oh,
starts.
the best bit.
Yeah. It's like, okay, that was Freebird.
It picks up at the end, doesn't it? That's the best bit of the song.
Yeah.
You know that solo is he's doubled it up.
Has he?
That's dual guitar, the whole solo from beginning to end.
So we looped it before there was a loop.
So no,
pedal.
he'd have played it, recorded it, and then he would have played it
played
over,
it
like
again.
you know, with the double vocals.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they get them exactly the
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
That whole solo was doubled.
Right.
So he's played it through twice, and
twice.
they've like matched it up.
Wow.
I can't find that not that long ago. I was like, and you
Actually,
can't
on the
tell.
track?
Yeah, on the track, it's played twice. You know, like if you do a vocal,
Yeah.
because
And
like Hetfield does it a lot.
Yeah.
That's what makes them seem bigger.
Yeah.
Why you would do it for? Why even think to do it for a
Yeah.
solo that intricate and that long?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they did it. That's just incredible how long. That's how it sounds so
Because
thick.
they're playing Hyde Park, aren't they, in the summer?
Leonard Skinner.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They're definitely touring. I think it's probably the last that I heard it on Planet Rock, and they're definitely touring next year in Britain. I think they're playing 2 or 3 gigs, and I think that's it. But I
Right,
suppose
yeah.
it's the same as Ozzy saying that's it. It's like
Because they
it's the
haven't
last
got.
tour, but
There's no.
10.
Is there original members in that? Because didn't they die in a plane crash or something?
Just actually Lynyrd Skynyrd, didn't it himself?
Oh, it was just it. Ah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
But actually, Lynyrd Skynyrd's the teacher, isn't it? That's what his name is.
I don't really
isn't it?
know.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know what the name is.
I couldn't pronounce that name for years, and
Yeah.
I was like, I said so many different variations, and I was like, Lynn Skin Len. People go, who? What?
What? So, but yeah, apparently they were named. It was named after. The band was named after some teacher at school who was a twat. So,
right.
or said, you know, one of these classic teachers that tells you you're never going to amount to nothing,
Yeah.
and then you do.
So actually, that reminds me. Our international listeners won't know this, but we've got a brand of pub or restaurant thing called Wetherspoons.
Yeah.
Have you heard the story about how that came about? Did I tell you?
I've been told, yeah.
It's called JD Wetherspoons because the guy who... That's not the name of the guy who owns it, who started it. He was at school and his career guy said, you will never amount to anything, you'll never do anything. So when he started his first like restaurant pub thing, he called it JD Wetherspoon after his teacher.
Did he?
Yeah.
Good on him.
And then within like a couple of years, he had like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So he's... I can imagine his teacher going, what the fuck?
Swat.
How, I was like, can I do anything about this? Obviously not.
no, it's just be a public
JD
name,
Wetherspoon.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there you go, little information for you there.
Yeah, there you go, folks. Stay tuned for more little snippets of
What's the other
information.
story? Burger King in Australia.
Yeah.
I've only found this when I was in Australia in 2003 and 4. When Burger King were only in America at first, then they went to the UK and they were going to go to Australia.
Yeah.
Somebody had got ahead of them and registered the name Burger King in Australia.
Right.
So he's like, they're going to have to pay me loads of money to get this. Yes! And they just called themselves Hungry Jacks, used the same logo. So that guy spent loads of money on their name and like they just use a different brand name.
Did they?
Yeah.
And is it still
Same
Hungry
restaurant,
Jack?
same logo, just different name.
Is it still the same today?
Yeah,
or
still
not?
the same
Is it?
today, yeah.
So there's no Burger Kings in...
No.
Well, there is, but it's just
Well,
one,
there is, but
one shit
yeah.
restaurant. So,
Yeah. So it's Hungry Jacks.
Isn't it?
It might have changed now, but it was at the time.
That's funny, isn't it? I suppose that's the same. I think if you could go back in time, I think I'd go back to, you know, when the internet boom kind of really hit.
Early 90s, wasn't it?
And a lot of people got a lot of money by registering names
Before.
and it was like, they've become millionaires just instantly, didn't they?
Yeah, because people
like,
would need the name .com.
Yeah, and it was like, whoa.
I don't know if you can do that anymore.
I don't think you can.
I think
now,
there's
can't
laws
you?
if you're
Yeah.
using someone's name that's already a registered brand,
thing, yeah.
or someone established
Yeah.
brand. I think you can acquire your name without having to pay money.
It
You
was-
can do that on Twitter with like handles and that your name.
Can you?
If you try and get the handle of like a famous person, they can just say no, I'm having it because it's using it's my brand name. So
yeah. So no more Tattie Tims out there, just me.
have you got all the socials for your for your?
I just can't get to grips with Twitter. I've got a Twitter account, but it's like
What is it at Tattie Tim?
just Tattie Tim. Or something like that. Yeah, Tattie Tim.
So if anyone's looking, it's TATTIE.
Yeah, and it's crap. Don't even bother. Because
You do Instagram? You do Instagram,
I
don't
do
you?
Instagram.
Yeah,
I love
right.
Instagram.
Well, that's
yeah.
perfect for
Yeah.
putting photos.
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
it? Every time you post a photo of like a baked potato, you always post it. I always see it when I'm really hungry. Oh my god, I need to go.
So, because I'm actually having a bit of a rebrand for the new year, so and I'm going to be pushing the Instagram and the Facebook sort of pages.
The thing
as
with Facebook now is sponsored posts, paying a little bit.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
It does open it. Unfortunately,
does.
it's just a business model
It
these
is,
days.
yeah.
I've had,
But,
we had it with the band as well.
I've never posted, sort of posted anything with my social media yet, purely because I found that Facebook works fantastically locally. Yeah, I've got a lot of people kind of internationally that
Who've
follow
visited
it.
and then follow you afterwards. Yeah.
But for the actual local thing that I want it to do, it does it just brilliantly. Because every day I post on, what today's special is.
Yeah.
And, what's in it, blah, blah, blah. And then
That's
maybe
what makes yours
yeah.
is the combinations that you have, I think.
Probably, innit?
It's like you just to get so.
Just got to think out the box.
I just think I'll just put this together and this together. They've never been together before, but they're going together now.
And it's kind of like, but it just works brilliantly. And I think Instagram works well locally to a point, but it's a lot more.
Your audience, your business is local.
It is, without a
Because
doubt.
it's
And
foot
that's what I
traffic
want.
directly
And
to you,
that's
so
what I
there's
want.
no other way to go about
Yeah.
it, is there?
So, whereas the Instagram thing, I'm now sort of pushing a little bit more because I want people to come to town. I know it probably
Yeah.
sounds a bit ostentatious.
Well, the thing is,
doesn't
on
it?
Facebook, when you do your sponsored post, you can choose your audience. You
Yeah.
can say, push it out to local
To-
people. So, like, friends of people who already like your page, it'll go out to them.
Yeah. Oh, does it? Is that how
Yeah,
specific it
You
can
can be very specific with it.
Right.
Like, I think you can pay for anything from like a 5 to like 15
It's
quid
not
and
a
get
lot,
extra
is it? Yeah.
5 to 10,000 people or something.
Because every time I go on every morning, it's like, you could boost this post for £15 and reach
Yeah,
10,000 people. And I'm thinking, well, I'm wishing.
You'd only need to do it once a month, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I'm reaching a couple of thousand a week anyway. So
Yeah, well, that's all you need.
it's kind of like,
I've often thought about this. Like, can you clone yourself? Can you expand? There's only a way to
what? I that was used to be my
goal.
yeah. It was like I want Tattie Tims all over the world, and they're going to be everywhere you go. And it's like
There's only one you though.
well, that's it. And it's kind of like when I was down in London recently. It was October, and there was I was looking around for everything to see if there was anyone like me. And
There's no one like you, Tim.
And
No one.
thankfully. So, and it turns out there isn't another potato man anywhere
Yeah,
in
the
the world.
only potato man in the
Killed them
world.
all.
He went to London to assassinate the last two.
That's why I've grown this beard. It's just a disguise. Yes.
Get on, shit off.
So, and then when I was chatting to, and I went to all the trendy places. So I went to like Portobello Road, Borough Market, Camden, everywhere, all the trendy places,
All the traders and all
yeah,
that.
yeah, Spitalfields, everywhere. And there was loads of these street food markets because they have quite a good system actually. They've got like the market itself, and then they've got like a sort of food market
Right.
next to it, or
Yeah.
sort of just off.
Yeah.
So it's not kind of someone selling hats and then someone selling baked potatoes and then someone selling socks and then you know what I mean. Like it used to be on Penrith Market. All the food is in one particular bit, and it's kind of like the street food market or blah blah blah. So I went round, and there was some. Don't get me wrong, there's some fantastic, absolutely brilliant sort of food spots, and they've really kind of thought outside the box and got different sort of things for it and that. But there was no potatoes at all in any of them. There was like, and then like I say, I was chatting to this lad who'd got this shop. I went into this one shop, and he kind of twigged my boots, and he was like, "Oh," and we got chatting.
Twigged my boots.
Yeah, because they're lokes. They're
Okay. Right.
oh. They're
Flashy.
Yeah. Oh, handmade. I've got a bit of a footwear fetish. And hats, actually.
Yep.
So he twigged the boots. He says, "Oh, those lokes," and we was just chatting. I says, "Yeah," and then and he says, "What do you do?" Blah blah blah, because he had some on the same. And I said, "Oh," I told him what I did. He said, "Oh, mate," he said, "you would make a bomb if you come down here, because there's nothing down here at all." He was a proper East End kind of lad, and he. So he gave me I've got his mobile and that, and I said, he says, "Just come down," he says, "and you'll make a killing one." So he got me this pitch basically on Portobello Road Market if I want it, but it's a bit far.
It's a bit of a commute.
Yeah, it's a bit of a commute. Yeah, so I mean, it's nice to know
You could.
if I wanted.
Yeah.
Because I've texted him since, and he has been You know,
Right.
he replied. So he wasn't just blagging me on the
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
He was,
yeah.
you know, the real McCoy.
Because
But,
one of your only problems I see is like when you're really busy and you've got a massive queue, you can't hurry it. It's like
No.
there's only one way to do it, and
Yeah.
it takes this amount of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And like
I
when it's a
know,
queue, you're like,
yeah.
you feel bad for the people waiting.
Yeah, you do.
Sometimes if I've very rarely come to you because I just can't.
Yeah,
but
well-
I was like, I just fancy one. Oh, there's a massive queue. I'll go. I can't.
yeah.
I'll go another
You
time.
can't, yeah, exactly. And it's not something. I mean, I know because Monday to Friday, I know I've got a certain time slots that are going to be busy because that's when people have the dinners.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of conscious of the fact that most people have between sort of half an hour to maybe an hour
Yeah.
to actually for the dinner break. So I'm kind of conscious of that. So I tend to just go as fast as I possibly can,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, when I'm there. And I don't think anyone could serve them any quicker than I can, even when I know it probably looks like I'm chatting to someone at the same time.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't even think that anyone could do them quicker than me.
I was just imagining like 2 or 3 people dishing multiple
Just-
spuds out at the
yeah.
same time, but
then would it be the same?
well, no,
Do
probably
you know what I
not.
mean?
No,
So
no.
that's why I don't bother having anybody taking over when I'm not there. You know, when I'm on holiday and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, there's uproar when you're not there. Oh my God, the town nearly shuts down.
Civil unrest, isn't there? People imagine that.
People running around the corner. Where's he gone? Where's he gone? Is he taking a week off? How
Like
dare
a little
he?
mini French Revolution.
How dare? Where was the memo?
Dropping to the knees, arms to the sky.
I want my spud.
But it's but the fact I don't advertise it on social media is because, you know, I may as well just advertise to villains. By the way, my house is empty, come and rob it.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of like
Yeah, there's been a lot of victims to that, like celebrities and that. There's people
yeah.
advertising
Yeah, it's
when
like,
they're out.
I'm going to Jamaica to do this. Oh, great! I'm going to go.
I'll be back on the 28th.
Yeah,
oh,
that's great.
window
I've
then.
got 2 weeks to just gently break into your house and nick all your stuff.
That's it. You just one day you're just not there.
Yeah, I'm just like, where's it gone?
Do you get comments when you come back?
Oh God, yeah. It's like I'm not allowed to go on holiday. It's like,
Like, I just didn't eat. I'll wait till you come back. They're that good. That's the thing with people if they have to wait. They go, oh, it takes a while, but when they get it, it's worth the wait.
it's worth it. It's all part of the experience.
Or what's the number one bestseller ever?
Cheese and beans.
That's my favourite as well. Woo! Cheese. You can't go wrong with cheese and
It's
beans.
the nation's default filling. It's cheese and beans.
I once thought I would have barbecue beans and cheese.
It's nice actually. If some people say to me, "Oh, just make me some," so I
Did you request? It's like you just like
yeah. Some people
avocado
I
and
have
caviar, please.
No, of what I have.
Yeah, no.
And then they ask for that, they just get cheese and beans.
Yeah.
But I do get some people that just say, "Oh, just surprise me," and they literally will
Oh,
turn,
wow.
and they'll turn the back, and they
So they don't know what's gonna be in it.
Know what's in it
Open it up.
until I get back to work, and it's
And
like,
they go, oh, I don't like this.
"Oh shit, I'm a veggie." Bacon and
Yeah.
meatballs and mince.
Oh God, because there's quite a selection you've got now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I
I'm
try.
like I can't choose. I don't know what to have.
It's funny because you get some people and be like, "Oh, it's too much choice," and then they don't pick anything. You go to Greg's. It's like, "What do you want?"
Oh, I got to
Go,
get a sausage
"Oh,
roll, please.
No. And then they'll ask for something bizarre that you wouldn't do, and then it's like, "Oh, I'll go to Greg's." So,
That is weird.
isn't it? It is. But
So what are some of the things that you've seen? Can you think of any random things that you've seen while you've been there? Because you stand in the middle of a town a lot. There must be some crazy shit.
Obviously, I've seen fights. I've seen quite a lot of fights.
In the middle of the day.
Middle of the day, yeah. I saw the once I was walking, I was working, and there was this fella come, and he was sitting on the bonnet of someone's car.
What?
So, literally, like because the fella wanted to get in his parking. There'd been some sort of altercation with parking or something, and he wasn't going to let it lie. This fella. So this fella came past at about 3 miles an hour past me like that, and this other fella was just sat on his bonnet. Right. And I was like, what? And then they got out and had a bit of a scrap later around the corner.
Wow.
But yeah, I've seen fights. I've seen when these horses came through town. There was some people doing the coast to coast on horseback. So normally
On horseback?
Yeah, they come
cycle,
through,
don't they?
Yeah, but they decided to do it on horseback. So they were from Ireland, and it was
From
great.
Ireland.
It was great. But they
Wow.
were, and they had this enormous horse. It was like massive. So I thought, well, I can't miss this opportunity. So I was just going to get on it. Luckily, it was a really, really gentle, nice horse. So he got me on top of that. But there was about 3 or 4 of them just came through on horseback. And, I mean, you're used to seeing, like, you know, the horse carriages come through town and probably an individual person or someone off the camp on a little one-man buggy
chariot
thing.
things.
Yeah. But, you know, to see sort of like what would you call it, a herd of horses, like on horseback, come trotting through
gone back in time. That was 1902 again.
It was. So
didn't you have a day in a mankini?
Yes.
Did you lose a bet or something, or sponsored something?
That was for to get more likes on my Facebook page. Things you do.
Things you do, eh?
It was I think I got to like something like nearly 900 and something likes on the Tattie Tims, and I thought, right, I'll just want to get 1,000.
Yeah.
So it was like, so I put it out there. So and I said, right, if you're gonna like the Tattie Tims page, and if I get 1,000, I'll go in town in a mankini, and lo and behold, 6 L's apparently.
No, they were just getting the likes so you could quickly take it off. Take it off. Put some clouds on.
So it was. So that was, but then the Herald got hold of that as well. And it was in the Herald and everything. It's like this report has turned up, and it was like, Christ Almighty! But it just shows the power of social media, doesn't it? It's like,
well, yeah, especially in your local world, it has more of an effect, doesn't it? Because it's like targeted sort of PR.
Yeah, definitely, and it works fantastically.
And you've been in obviously the local news a lot, and
yeah. I mean,
just been a stalwart.
It's like, Tim's in the
here.
paper again. So I think my mother-in-law has got a scrapbook of all the cuttings.
You must have been in the local press a lot.
I think I have. One of the environmental health officers gave me a picture the other day that we'd had took. It must have been a long time ago now, because I looked so young on it. It was like, God, I looked like a little kid, and it was kind of like, but it was to do with. It was a picture that had been in the paper they were doing like this reduced salt.
Yeah, Mike.
Oh, reduced salt.
Right.
Thing, and it was kind of like they were trying to. So they decided to get me on it, and so there was me with this picture of that, and it was kind of like, and that was in the paper. So that was, I'd been in quite a few times just for.
Have you got a picture of your first day?
No. Yes, yeah, I think I have.
You need to get that on.
Yeah, I should actually, shouldn't
Yeah.
I? That was pre-phone pictures. That was took with an actual camera.
A what?
An actual camera that we had to get the pictures
Developed
as well. not just print it out.
Have you ever had to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took disposable cams on holidays and school trips and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not that young.
Wait, 25?
Yeah.
I remember when I went travelling it was only 2003, 2004. We had to just take loads of disposable cameras, just send the films home. We never, no idea what we took.
Yeah.
Can't remember. Some of them were drunk,
Yeah.
smoking things we shouldn't be smoking.
Okay,
You know, like
yeah.
you get home, shit. don't show them that. Don't get them developed. I'll get them developed when I get home. So it was like a year and a half later before you like get. Which was really good. But you wouldn't get that now because you'd see everything instant. Delete. I don't like that. Delete. Take it again.
But it's true, innit?
Get the lighting right. But then you miss out on some golden photos.
Some ace things you used to get, didn't you?
I like to do that though because I went to a wedding a couple of years ago when they had disposable cameras on all the tables.
Yeah.
And it, how cool is that when you get the developed and the random stuff on you?
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't delete it. It's
exactly.
It's just there.
But looking through a glass square, I can't really
it's
see
bizarre,
what I'm taking. But I'll take it anyway.
It's just totally bizarre.
You can't delete it, so it's like, just take another. Winding the film on. Could it click? Oh, it's finished now. There you go. And half the pictures are like quality warning sticker on it. Like that. No idea what this is.
What do you mean?
You're like, oh, I know what that is. But yeah, so you've won some awards over the years as well, haven't you, for your spuds?
I've won a couple, one or two. I won.
Obviously, you win them all because you're the only spud man in the world, aren't you?
I won a few that I've created.
World's best spud man.
The world's best spud man wins again.
One entry, one winner.
Yeah. I won again. How did you do that?
So
I've won some awards, haven't you?
I've won one quite recently, and then that was for what happened earlier this year.
Yeah.
And then there was one that I won from the Newcastle Building Society used to do this cornerstone of the community kind of award thing.
Oh yeah.
And and it was voted for I don't know, some community some or other, and I won. I think they had to make her, because apparently they had that many entries, that to sort of just create some
a
sort
category
of
for you.
Yeah.
This guy's so good, he needs his own category. He's going to have to do it. It's the first.
But that was a good night, because we kind of like, it was at the George in town, and it was free. It was a free bar.
Whoa! Always a
it
good
was
night. It's a
good.
free bar.
And it was, even though it was a weekday, it was still good.
Were you at work the next morning?
Yeah. Somewhat hazy and numb.
Because because we were at a wedding earlier this year, and you got a phone call. What was what did you this one, you came? It was like 8 of us at a table, right? And he got a phone call. He came out to take it, and he said, "I've won!" And we were like, and then he ran back in, and we were like, "What's he won? The lottery or what?"
That was the what was that one?
He's got that many awards.
The,
can't even remember.
Penrith Chamber of Trade.
Oh, that was it.
Star of Business or something. Or,
Yeah.
Unsung Hero.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've been there for years and you deserve an award.
Yes. So, that's what people think. I think, well, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
It's like, it's what I do.
So, are you okay to talk about what happened earlier this year? For people that don't know, because it was
if people want to know
quite
about it.
a story.
It was. That was.
Because I've heard various things from various people, but I don't know the full. Obviously, you were there. So, what did happen?
Well, it was a lovely day. It was the day. It was the day before my birthday, my 50th birthday, and so it was the 14th of May. So I'll obviously remember it.
Yeah.
And the rush had finished about 2:30 in the afternoon. So usually in that time of day, I'm kind of like preparing the potatoes for the next day. So I always bring my spuds down, wrap them in foil, and have a coffee, watch the world go by,
Slow down a bit.
Yeah. And then Lynn was opposite with their ice creams, and I was just kind of like, so I was kind of looking to, I was turning and doing what I do, and then all of a sudden this car, and it was kind of it was surreal, because you kind of, I've had it happen to me once before when I got knocked off my motorbike. It's kind of like, it's going to happen, and it kind of happens fast but slow. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
This was the same thing. So this car, I saw it along the pavement from sort of Shoe Zone, and it was kind of like on the pavement, flying down past Greg's and Carfo
Where
Warehouse
pedestrians should
yeah,
be.
Yeah, and it was like, what the fuck? I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing. Do you know what I mean? And then it was kind of, so I watched it come all the way from there. It passed me, and then it kind of went behind the telephone box where I am, and then blasted through the railings, and then it hit 2 other cars. So it hit another car that was had been coming up King Street, and then that deflected its path of travel, and then sent it towards Santander.
Right.
And luckily there was a car outside Santander, and it sort of just went boom straight into the side
Right. Yeah.
of that car, because otherwise it would have just ploughed straight through into
More people.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, I looked up at Lynn, and I was all, what the fuck? And she was all like the same back.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen what had happened to the lady Janice that had been hit, because the telephone box was in my way.
Right.
So my initial thought was that it was a terrorist attack, because obviously a lot of this had been happening recently, hadn't it?
People driving on the pavement and all that. Yeah.
So I thought, it's a soft target, not much of a, but nevertheless it's a soft target in it, Penrith. And so I thought, right, that fucker's not getting away. So I ran from my stall towards where the car had come to a standstill, thinking it was going to be some crazy terrorist in there, and I was just going to beat the shit out of him basically and get hold of him. But then there was this copper. I kind of looked behind me, as you go to cross the road.
Yeah.
And there was this copper, suddenly, like, this cop car appeared, and these coppers, like, one had got out and was running, and he overtook me to the car. So I thought, I'd pretty much got to the monument at that point. I thought, well, that's all right. The copper will get hold of him. He'll be fine. So then I looked round then, back to sort of HSBC, and then I saw, the lady Janice on the floor, and it was like, and then it was another what the fuck moment, because it was like, what?
Can't believe what you're saying.
Yeah, because obviously she was lay there, and her one leg had been torn off completely, so sort of mid thigh.
Wow.
Her other leg was in a position that your leg shouldn't be in naturally, and it was just, just bizarre. You couldn't quite, you know, believe what
Like
you
a
were seeing.
dream.
Yeah, it was totally surreal.
Yeah.
So then it was almost like, that, right, got to do something. So I ran back to the stall, got my gloves on, and since speaking to one of the paramedics who was in the air ambulance.
Because have you got medical training at all, or because
Just
the firefighting
from the
side
fire
of things?
service, yeah. So it was that sort of fire service training that kicked in. So I went back, and because you were always told put your gloves on, so it was like I went and put my gloves on, and then it was funny because the one guy said you had the presence of mind after what you'd just seen to go and put your gloves on. I said so it's just like, so basically then I ran round. People were just, there was a
pandemonium, I'd imagine.
It was pretty much. There was an old lady, and she was kind of like at the head of Janice, and she was sort of crying and obviously mega distraught, and obviously Janice herself was crying and shouting and whatever, and then other people were just sort of looking, standing, and didn't know what to do, and because you don't know unless you've seen and been through things like that, you wouldn't know what to do. It's not like watching an episode of Casualty. It's kind of like it's real. And so I didn't have anything. I knew I had to try and stop the bleeding on the leg that had been sort of ripped off. So I got what I had. All I had was my sort of apron, my pinny that I'll wear. So I thought, right, I'll have to just tie that round. So I ran back round, got down on the floor, and then I was kind of like, says, right. I said, at this point, I was talking to her, and you kind of, you've got part of your training when you're in the fire service is that you have to do sort of casualty care. So even though you come across people that are in horrific sort of circumstances, you're trying to make them as calm and as it's difficult because you don't know what to say a lot of the time, but you've got to try and keep them calm, keep them awake, or whatever the circumstances might be, and keep others around you in the same sort of usually your colleagues are with you, so it's quite easy, and usually you've got a shitload of equipment as well. So but at this point I just had an apron and a knowledge of what to do. So I tried to tie this apron round, but it wasn't big enough because it was obviously at the top of a thigh. I was trying to get it round to stop the bleeding. And then there was a girl from the Newcastle Building Society called Tasha, and she said, "Do you want a belt?" I looked up, and she was there. She said, "Do you want a belt?" Turns out she's kind of got some medical training. She does something at the hospital or something. She was telling me afterwards. So I said, "Yeah, that'd be perfect." So then, kind of like all of a sudden, then we was inundated with belts. Like everyone was giving you a belt. So it was kind of like, got this one belt. She said, "Oh, it's elastic. Does it matter? Like one of them stretchy ones?" I said, "Yeah, it's fine." I said, so I then put that back round the same thigh. And I said at this point, I knew her name was Janice, and I just told her that it was going to hurt. And then I just sort of put it round and just yanked the belt as hard as I could to try and stop the bleeding. Then this copper come next to me, and then I said, and so I was kind of like, that was me done. I knew I had to stay there. Then there was no moving. And so I looked up and I said, "You're going to have to put a tourniquet on that leg somewhere as well." So I don't know what he put on. He must have put another belt on or something like that. Right, yeah. And then we were both kind of... It seemed like a long time, but then more and more emergency service, sirens everywhere. More and more people started to come, and people were getting sort of blankets up and putting sort of shielding around and making it a bit more dignified, Yeah. So, and then I knew that she needed the air ambulance, whatever. I says, quick. Whatever. Yeah. There's a thing called the golden hour, which is from the point of the impact of the injuries to the time that you get onto the actual operating table in theatre in hospital is an hour. If you've any time after that hour, your chances of survival drastically reduce. Right. So you've got this golden hour where things need to, get moving. So this other copper then appeared, and I remember shouting at him to get on his radio and get the air ambulance. And as it turned out, it had already been, but he just looked at me like I was an idiot, and then I just told him again.
Was that because he knew it was already coming?
I don't know. He just, or whether he just thought I was some idiot,
Right?
civilian that didn't have a clue
Yeah,
who was
yeah.
panicking. But then he eventually got on the radio and wandered off. So then eventually the paramedics turned up. So as soon as I knew that the green uniforms were there, I knew there was a fight, and I knew there was nothing anyone could do until she was in hospital. Apart
So
from
were you
giving
aware of how much time had passed at that point?
none whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Wouldn't be, would you?
So it was kind of like, I remember everyone around me sort of saying, "Where's the fucking ambulance is? It's taking forever." Blah, blah, blah. And it was like, and then I remember obviously the first one to arrive must have been a car, because they've said, "Oh, they've just sent a fucking car." I was thinking, it doesn't matter what they've sent, because at this moment in time, all she needs is
Transport.
pain relief. No pain relief.
Oh, pain, right? Yeah,
So
yeah.
I knew that there was nothing anyone could do. Even the best doctor in the world could do nothing for her there. He had to be in, in a hospital, but all they could do was give her the pain relief that she needed to make the situation easier.
Yeah.
So then, as soon as the paramedics came, I kind of like took her, because they took over with proper tourniquets and whatever.
Yeah.
So then I sort of just, eased back, and then just sort of stood around in shock for a bit, from what I can remember. I remember going and having a look in the car to see exactly who had been driving it, and I kind of got maybe towards where Karen is with the coffee stall, to her that sort of fat area, and I looked across, and the car door was open in this Mercedes, and there was just some old geezer sat there. So I was still awake, conscious, sort of looking spaced out, like I didn't know what was going on. And then I remember Phil from the Cowper's pharmacy just coming and grabbing hold of me and sort of taking me back to the pharmacist's to wash me off, because obviously it was a summer's day, so obviously I was covered in, I just had a t-shirt on, so I was covered in blood and
Right, yeah.
stuff. So it was kind of like, so he took me back there, and then got me cleaned up, and then I just kind of went back to Lynn's store, because everything, by the time I'd got back, it was just like a scene from, I don't know, a disaster movie. And it was a disaster, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, there was ambulances, there was fire engines, there was police, there was tape,
Paramedics, yeah.
there was everything. The whole town has been cordoned off. It was like, and then so I just sat kind of by Oxfam. Someone bought me a coffee, and I just sat kind of, and then it kind of sunk in slowly. It was kind of like, hell, what's just happened?
The adrenaline slowly wears off.
Because that's right, because you're just running on an adrenaline at first,
Yeah.
but then it kind of wears off, and then you're kind of like,
But you've been shaking a bit, were you?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like, and then you get sort of tearful, and there's a whole
Shock.
yeah,
Various
there's a
emotions.
whole sort of all sorts of, and it all sort of happens, one after the other. It's like a freight train rolling over you.
Yeah.
And then what was interesting was the fact that, because normally when I was in the fire service, you'd be at, you'd get the shout, you'd come in, you'd get to the job, and you'd just be there for that short time, so you'd do
what you've got to do, and you're out.
you would go. Whereas I'd seen this whole incident from beginning to end, so it was kind of like, it was just weird to watch.
The aftermath.
Absolutely, whereas before I wouldn't have known what had happened
Yeah.
after we'd gone, to see
Which
it all.
is probably for the best, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, I mean, and as it's turned out, everything's turned
She
out
lost
great.
both her legs. Yeah.
She's since lost both her legs.
I was scrolling through your feed. You gave a picture of you all in the paper together.
yeah.
Like a little while after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
She was local, wasn't she?
yeah, she was. She used to work at the Co-op apparently, for years in the butchery department. And then when the Co-op shut down, obviously she had to find another job. She was working at Jenks up at the truck stop, from what I can gather.
Right, yeah.
So, but from all of what I've heard and seen, I've seen her a couple of times since, and it's obviously going to be a long, long road, and it's going to be a roller coaster for her.
Yeah, definitely.
Some days you'll be up, some days you'll be down.
Life-changing moment, isn't it?
Yeah, but from what I can gather, she's got the right frame of mind, and she's kind of moving in the right direction. So fingers crossed, it'll not work out right, but you
Oh.
know, it'll,
As good as it can.
Yeah, and life has
Yeah.
took a different path now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, so, and hopefully, I mean, who knows what might happen? So
I know, but unbelievable.
yeah, it was just that's probably one of the. I think I can't imagine anything more surreal like that.
Literally
ever
like being in a
happening.
movie.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
kind of like weird, just like,
Yeah.
or like an episode of Casualty, but it's
Yeah.
real.
yeah.
It's like you can't
You
believe
can't
it.
believe.
And you, like you say, you don't process it at the time.
You
It's
don't.
afterwards.
Yeah.
You go, "Oh,
And
shit, I
and
just
the
did
next
that."
day, I kind of went to work the next day, and you realise. I mean, it probably sounds a bit selfish, but you realise how close you were to.
It could have been you.
It could have been, you know.
Did you find out what happened?
There's all sorts of rumours, so I haven't heard anything. But all
It was
I
an
heard,
elderly driver, wasn't
he was
it?
a 90-year-old man, and apparently he was in his wife's car. And from what I've been told, it's not official, but his leg somehow got, because it was an automatic car. That's why it seems as if it was a terrorist attack, because obviously he put his foot on the accelerator, his leg had somehow jammed.
Right, so a
on
leg
that, and
spasm or something.
Yeah, so something had happened to make his leg lock onto the accelerator, and obviously an automatic car changes gears, doesn't it, automatically?
Right.
So that's why it was getting faster as it was going
It
along.
was just naturally going up the gears, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was, and that's why it seems as if it was some sort of, because to me it seemed like it was a determined effort
To go in a certain- yeah.
because there was no deviation, and that was obviously because of his age, because his reflexes wouldn't have been,
Yeah.
you know, as quick as ours. So obviously he couldn't. He'll have just been panicking, wouldn't he? And
Yeah.
he'll have just, you know, foot on the accelerator, car just out of control.
I suppose if your leg's locked, what can you do?
Oh yeah,
Not
yeah,
much you can do.
yeah.
but-
I mean, even if it had been a manual car, it might have been better. I don't know.
It probably wouldn't be able to get up as much speed out of it,
Yeah,
because you would
yeah.
you only limits in first
Yeah.
gear, I guess.
Yeah. So,
But,
but yeah, a weird old day. So
because it's like,
So-
what else have you seen? There's a police chase not that long before
yeah, that was,
it, was
yeah,
there?
that was not too long before actually. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I thought it was in the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, I actually missed that, but I saw the aftermath of that because I got into. It was funny because I go into town and I set the stall up,
Yeah.
sort of early because I have to start the potatoes cooking early. So I'd done that, and then I usually then go back home, start making the coleslaw and the tuna and all the sort of cold fillings, and then I take the sort of white box that she's behind me with all the colds, the fresh stuff in down, ready to start serving. But I couldn't get into town because obviously town had been completely cordoned off again. So it was like, the nearest I could get to town was by Mansion House.
You on bike?
No, it was this some of the car because I needed to get in
right,
the big igloo
right,
box
yeah,
down
yeah.
there. So I got as far as there. Lynn dropped me off, and then I sort of dragged the cool box
Old
through
school,
St.
by
Sanders-
hand.
Yeah, through St Andrew's churchyard, and I got into town, and it was the same again. It was like this sort of disaster area. There was but it was full of Scottish police this time, bizarrely, and I didn't know what had gone on. But then Karen had told me that this car had come up sort of Kingston, they'd been chasing it from somewhere in Scotland. And
Right.
somehow it ended up in Penrith, and
I know why.
kind of-
It's because Penrith's just off the motorway, isn't it?
yeah,
I'll just
yeah,
go here.
Just go, yeah. I
And they get into town and they go,
yeah,
I should
it's-
not have come here.
innit? So, and I think they've obviously just been going too fast.
Yeah, straight to the wall,
Just
isn't
gone
it?
straight into the wall of the bank, yeah. But obviously, because no one was hurt this time, and
Yeah.
I just saw it as a little.
That was my first thought.
Was it?
Because the way it went straight
I mean,
through,
yeah,
could it-
yeah.
People,
Yeah,
people
The
walking
amount-
all over the
yeah,
place.
the amount of people that are constantly just wondering about town, it just shows.
Like there's
you.
always people. Like I've noticed, there's quite a few people standing on that wall, like having a fag or
Yeah.
just talking, bumping into
Yeah.
people, just talking.
Because it's a bit of a sun trap there.
Yeah,
So
there's that as
you
well.
know,
yeah.
when
Like
the-
the
when-
staff come out for a fag break or something.
and
Yeah,
then people will regularly just either be on those railings or, like you say, leaning against that wall
yeah,
because the sun comes kind of round there. And
yeah. It's like a
nice.
golden time
yeah,
to like
yeah,
yeah.
So, but yeah, another
Day in the
weird-
life of,
yeah,
eh?
Exactly.
But I mean, it was 22 years. It just does it seem like it's gone by fast? Or
It does
is
and it doesn't. Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, when I look back at some of the pictures, you think, Christ, yeah, that's a long time ago. But then you think back to some things, you think, Christ, was that? That doesn't seem like,
Time seems to get faster as you get older.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like I've noticed.
Yeah, it's not. It just seems it. I don't know why.
Like even things like 10 years ago, like 2008, and you go 10 years. You go, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's like it's crazy.
I don't know what it is that makes time go quicker, or like just life, just living life, doing your thing.
I don't know what it is, but it definitely does. Because even the weeks, just you're kind of like, oh, I can't wait. Like tomorrow, everyone will be like, oh, I can't wait till Friday. And for some people, it will seem like a lifetime.
Yeah.
But next thing you know, for
it's
me,
Thursday already.
It's Thursday.
It was Wednesday.
That means I can have a drink. I can have a drink tonight.
Yeah, because you said that most people live for the weekend, like 9 to 5
I'd
weekend.
Say, yeah.
So that's what drives them forward.
Yeah.
Or if you've got holiday to look forward to,
yeah,
you're almost wishing time away because
Yeah.
you're like, I'm going away on holiday.
Yeah, it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And then you get like a couple of days before, and you're in holiday mode, then aren't you? It's
yeah.
like, I'm just chilling out for my holidays.
But you go on quite a lot of holidays, do you? You managed to get away?
We managed to get away. Not so much now. Longer holidays. We used to enjoy, especially when
Penrith can't survive without you for more than a week.
exactly. But me and Lynn used to enjoy sort of like before we had Maya. We used to enjoy sort of 2-week holidays.
Yeah.
Away. Usually in the winter actually, because it was you just break the winter up, so it would be nice.
Business is down in the winter though. Surely not as many people.
It can be, but
if the weather's horrific, people ain't gonna queue.
No. I mean, like this week's been absolutely shite in it with the weather.
Rain, unbelievable rain.
Yeah, it's like I was just a good job I got loads of coats because none of them are getting a chance to dry out before you have to put them on again the next day. So it was. Now it's kind of like the thought of going away for a fortnight just in the same hotel and just lying there.
Yeah, I suppose it depends where you go. If you're going like Disneyland or something, it'd be a bit different. But
so we tend to. What I like now is actually city breaks just for like.
Yeah, I do that all them.
A week or
a long
4
weekend
days
or
or a long
something,
weekend. It's just like it can seem like it's just enough time to recharge your batteries,
and then you're ready to go back.
You're ready to go. And maybe I love Cornwall, so we always go down to Cornwall every year.
About as far away as you can get.
Yeah, it's a bit of a ball ache actually for me, because it's like literally from one end of the country to the other, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And then, but it's worth it when you get there. If you can get the weather, it's not so good if you can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, the odd week here and there.
I was going to ask, when did firefighting come into it?
That's when.
Was that since you were up here? You didn't do any of that beforehand?
No. I joined the fire service up here in 1999.
But as a volunteer side of it?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you got paid, but
right, okay.
not a lot. So
I wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah, in those days it was called retained firefighter. So they were always asking for, looking for sort of guys and girls to become firefighters. And there was an advert, and I'd known a couple of lads because they'd come from Spuds.
Customers,
yeah, and they'd sort of said, "Oh, you'd be good," and so I thought I'll go for it, see what happens.
How does it fit in with your
Got in
work, like doing the Spuds, doing the day?
When I first started, it was a bit of a ball out because I was on 24/7 call out, so it was kind of like I would literally
You have to drop your Spuds.
Yeah, and literally, sorry, I gotta go. So my pager would go out, and I'd be off.
What would happen to your slud stall?
Well, the one time, it was foot and mouth. So I got this call.
2001.
Yeah. So I got this call, and it was.
For anyone that doesn't know what foot and mouth is, it's like it's a
disease,
livestock disease, isn't it? I don't know how it.
Yeah, I don't know
spreads.
why. Yeah,
it does spread like wildfire. If you've got it,
and there was
devastated around here, didn't it?
Yeah, and there's quarantines and.
I remember like going past some fields,
piles of
cattle just piled up just on fire.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that smell.
Yeah.
So that was in 2001. It just wiped most of the farms out around here, didn't it?
Totally. Yeah. But we still had to, obviously incidents still happened on farms. So there'd be like barn fires and tractor fires and things. People in need of the fire service. So the one call, I'd left the unit about 3 o'clock. So I was just sort of set, packing it up, ready to come out. The alert goes off. Get to the station. That's why I'm always on my push bike. I've since kept my push bike, but that's why I was on my push bike, because it meant I could get to the fire station in time, which actually took me 90 seconds, believe it or not.
Timed it.
So then I'd get to the station, got in the pub, where we going, barn fire, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, fucking hell. Knowing, because this foot and mouth quarantine was in.
Oh yeah.
So you had to, you'd get onto the farm, no bother. So you get onto the job, and we put this fire out. And what it normally would have been, you'd been back by, I don't know, it was 3 o'clock, so maybe 4 hours. Some of them went on for 24 hours nearly, but this one was relatively short. So we would have been out normally by about 7 o'clock, say, but it was kind of like getting on for nearly midnight. And I knew that the stall was still in the middle of town.
Oh yeah.
So, and police had to attend in those days as well, because basically what we had to do was disinfect ourselves.
Yeah.
And every single bit of kit before we were allowed to leave. So it would reduce the
risk of further infection. Yeah.
So it's like, oh geez. So there was this copper, and I said, oh mate, I said, can you just radio control for us and just ask them to just turn the camera on my stall in town, because it's still in the middle of town. And he says, oh yeah, no bother. So
you've got like your till and your float and stuff.
Yeah. So it was like, so I said, yeah, no bother. So we did that, and then he said, oh, I've done that for you. I said, spot on. So then eventually I got away early, because I think I got away in one of the Land Rovers, and then I got back into town, went home, got the car, went into town. Half the store was missing. I was like, oh, fucking hell. So it was like all my boxes and everything. And then about, because obviously the camera was on it, then about sort of 2 or 3 minutes after I'd arrived, obviously they'd seen me arrive, and then the coppers turned up in their vans, and they'd got all the stuff in the back of the vans.
Oh, right.
They'd taken it away. What they could physically lift,
Yeah.
they'd actually removed and put in the back of the van. And I said, oh, spot on. So then they give us a lift, packing it all away. And
That's a community spirit for you.
Yeah, innit? So, but yeah, so that was, but the firefighting, I mean, there's loads of jobs I can and can't tell you about
Yeah.
in that, but that was a...
So when did it stop? Are you having to sort of like drop your spuds?
I managed to somehow change my availability, because there was like full cover in those days and then part cover.
Yeah.
So I joined as full cover. I think I did a couple of 3 years of that, and it was becoming a bit too, because it was a really,
Happening
really
too
busy.
often.
Yeah, it was a really busy station back then, busier than it is now. And so I kind of managed to talk my way and sort of talking to them, giving me like a part cover contract, which meant that I was still giving sort of like a lot of hours. So it was basically some sort of 3 o'clock in the afternoon through till sort of 6 o'clock the following morning. I was on call, but during the sort of times when I need to be in town, I wasn't on call, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah.
So, and then I managed to keep that contract then until I was injured on duty and then got invalided out. So
How long ago was that?
was that? I think I did about. Must have been 2012, 2013.
Right.
So I did a good few years.
How did you injure yourself?
Well, if you were an attractive young girl and I was trying to impress you,
Right.
I went into this house and it was on fire, and there was like, I rescued everybody in there, but then the little girl's puppy was still in the house, so I went in.
Are you
and
serious?
And I just went and rescued the puppy, but the stairs fell on me as I was coming out.
All
so.
right.
But you're not an attractive young girl, so basically I fell off my bike.
Oh, that sounded a bit. Fell off your bike
Yeah.
on your work run.
Turning in. It was an icy morning.
Oh my god! What did you do?
Knackered my knee completely.
Oh no! I thought we had the typical firefighter story. Oh, save the girl!
Saved the girl. Went in, saved the puppy.
Oh no!
Then the floor fell on me and knackered me. But
God.
I just fell off my bike.
You seem to walk all right now, though.
Yeah, I mean, it is a metal knee. That's a metal knee.
It's a metal knee.
Yeah.
Ah,
But,
metal man.
Yeah. So it's all fun and games whenever I go to the airport.
Oh god,
So I have
yeah.
to take everything off and then
Yeah.
get scanned.
Have you got
and
like
then
a doctor's note certificate? Say, look.
You can get those cards apparently to say
right.
that.
Setting off all of the arms.
Yeah, but I think it's titanium or something. I asked them because there was a choice of porcelain or
Porcelain doesn't sound very safe.
Does it, you know? So it's like, I'll have a china knee, please.
You could fall over. Your
It's
knee
like
just
like
disintegrates.
that, isn't it?
I've shattered my knee again. That's the whole reason I had an operation, so I wasn't to shatter my knee. Porcelain. Wow.
Yeah, apparently you can get porcelain ones.
That sounds like from the olden days. All we have is porcelain. That's all we've got. What possible use is that? Porcelain.
Porcelain knee.
That can't be an option anymore, surely.
Can't.
They're like carbon now. It's light and easy
They will
to.
be, won't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think this is titanium. So it's
Good
probably
old, you
worth
can't
it.
go wrong with titanium.
It's worth a few quid, isn't it? So-
Does it ever give you any problems anymore?
No. It's
That's
been
amazing.
yeah,
What they can
it's
do
been-
these days.
No, it is. It's pretty good. But I was one of the. It was funny because I was one of the youngest because I was still in my 40s then. So it was about what 6 maybe years ago. I think I had it. Yeah, it must have been. So I was in. Eventually, after going through like operation after operation, they said we're going to have to just replace it because it's knackered.
Yeah.
So it was like, right. So I went in and I was in Kendal Hospital, and it was like most people that have a knee replacement are sort of like in their sort of 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
So I was the youngest in the ward by at least 30 years. So it was
Wow.
like a bit of a novelty for the
You're
nurses.
the record breaker.
Yeah.
Youngest knee replacement.
So it was like it was fun, and then there was me thinking, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be like a little holiday. I've been there 2 days. I was in and out. Oh bloody hell! So it was literally I just had to. You have to be able to bend your knee like 45 degrees. As soon as you could do that, chucks you out.
You're all right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll give you a little bit of paper. Say, there you go. Just keep those exercises, and we'll see you in 6 months.
I was going to say before you, if I forget, you're a drummer as well, aren't you? So when did that come into the play?
When
Can't
I was-
imagine your parents would be happy to buy you a drum kit.
No. Well, in the house I lived in, they had a drum kit in the front room, so it was kind of it was just there, and I just sort of taught myself from.
All right.
I can remember. I can't not remember being able to play the drums. If that sounds.
It's been that long then.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? So I must have been maybe 10.
Right.
Hence the first gig being Buddy Rich. You know,
Of course. Yeah.
and then it was. I suppose I've got natural rhythm. You know, I can just. It's funny to me. I can just do things, and it's like.
Yeah.
And then you get other people, and you're sitting behind a kit, and they just haven't got a clue.
They just can't get it.
And you think,
Yeah.
it's just simple. It's like
It's
breathing.
one of those things you've either got it or you haven't.
Yeah, to me, it's just like getting on a bike and riding it or breathing. It's just
Yeah,
like I can just you
Pick
just
up a
do
rhythm.
it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm the best. I probably
You've
would be.
been in a band,
Loads.
right?
So,
In Birmingham.
yeah. Oh well,
right.
this is why I'm probably selling spuds on the street corner now, because when I was sort of 13 onwards, I was in bands and playing residencies in pubs and clubs in Birmingham and falling
right,
asleep
yeah.
at school when I should have been learning stuff. But so I was. I suppose the first proper band I got in, it was a sort of mod kind of rhythm and blues. The rhythm and blues, sort of 60s rhythm and blues.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was very much
The
sort of-
original type of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
So it was like there were two brothers, and they had this like real sort of thing for sort of the Yardbirds and Spencer Davis Group, Small Faces, that sort of stuff. I didn't. Oh, what happened there?
We have
A malfunction.
Producer Tech will swing to action.
Singing.
This is him doing what he's paid to do.
So, folks, this is it's bizarre, isn't it?
Just let it fall down, then just put
I'll
it.
just hold it.
Let it go where as far as it's going to go, and then.
It's in the,
I see. It's like
wait.
that. Is it?
Is that?
Just hold it. It's fine.
I'm alright with that. I'm alright doing that.
Take it out. Take it out of the.
Just hold it.
See, drummers don't get this. Sort of
No,
thing.
Can I swing
There you
it
go.
now? Can I do a?
He's going to start singing now.
Can I do a Roger Daltrey?
Don't cup the mic like death metal vocalist.
He's not on camera. Put him on the camera.
Let's do a Roger Daltrey.
That's doing the moves.
Hey, this is quite novel. I might become a singer now.
Yeah. Looks like you're holding the interview now. You're
It does,
interviewing me.
doesn't it? Yeah. So, Marc.
So drumming.
So drumming, yeah. So I was about. It was same again. You know, when you go back to, there was no internet, so there was no. The only way you could get into a band or heard about a band was word of mouth, or you'd go down to the local sort of music shop, and there was obviously quite a few in Brum, and people would put adverts in.
Oh, of course, yeah, the classifieds and all that. Yeah.
So there'd be like adverts in the on the walls of the music.
Yeah, like a
sort
notice
of
board
bits.
type
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And I can't remember the name of the shop, but it was in an absolutely enormous music shop, and it was kind of like, it was on 3 floors, and it was pretty much from, you imagine the George from the Woolpack
Yeah.
to Barclays.
That's a
So
big
it
space.
was as big as that. And on the first floor there was amps and PAs and all that sort of stuff, and all hardware. Then on the second floor it was all guitars and basses. And then on the third floor it was all just drums and cymbals and stands and whatever. So you'd go in there on a Saturday sort of afternoon, and it was just like, you know, heaven. It was just like, everyone would just bypass the first floor because it was just you know, crap. But then you go into the second floor and there'd be like a million kids just playing, like, what was it? Not Stairway to Heaven. Smoke on the Water.
Oh, of course.
So it was
It's
like
one of the two.
yeah. So Smoke on the Water, varying different degrees of
That's
accuracy.
a good song to learn on the drums, I suppose.
That's
That'd
about,
be a
I know
simple-
Ian Pace is a pretty wicked drummer.
Yeah,
And then we'd go upstairs and there'd be a few kits set out, but there was loads of kits. There'd be all like, you know, the bass drum on the floor, then all the toms would be stacked up,
Yeah.
so they'd all be sort of, you know, and then there'd be 1 or 2 kits sort of actually set up. So you'd go in there and sort of bash away and just be a general nuisance. But then obviously there was all the advertising for bands and that, and then so I saw this one advert, and it was like, it was a local number to us. So obviously there was the 021.
Right, yeah.
But then it was like the 35, which was our
Right.
part of town. You know, there was different. I don't know if it was the same in Newcastle or anywhere like that. Would it have been?
think not one I remember. It's just the original, the first 4.
Was it?
0191.
Yeah.
That's just the whole area.
Yeah. So there was the 021, and then it was like 353 or 354, which was our part of the city.
Right.
So you knew it was kind of, they wouldn't have been too far away from where we lived.
Because that's key at that stage. isn't it? They've got to be on your doorstep.
Because otherwise you're not catching the bus all the way to the other side of town.
You can't carry a drum kit, can you?
Yeah, exactly. So then I find them, and they live about from here to, say, I don't know, the other side of the village away from here. And it was like, whoa! So go in, and they come to me, and they say, oh, you know, can you? It was like an audition-y type thing. I'd been and seen them too, and they were, you know, rhythm, and one was rhythm, one was lead, and the rhythm was more into your Spencer Davisy type stuff, whereas the lead guitarist, the brother, he was full on old school blues guitarist. You know what I mean? He loved it. So I kind of listened to them and thought, yeah, I can play that. So then they came to my house, and I was just, I suppose in some respects I'm in the similar vein to sort of Keith Moon. So I did like this,
like an animal on the drums.
yeah. So I did this kind of like Keith Mooney kind of drum solo, you know, in his front room.
Keith Moon without the drugs.
Yeah. So, and then that was enough to impress him. So I was in the band after that.
All right.
So then, and that was the biggest band that I was in. That we had a couple of residencies. We played.
Which they no longer do residencies anymore.
Did I not anymore?
Don't think so.
Did I not?
No.
We played De Montfort Hall in Leicester. That was an outdoor.
That's still there now.
Yeah, it is. That's one of the
top venues now.
It's still a venue in Leicester, as far as I know.
Yeah, I know of a festival that's on there every year.
Yeah, well, we played the outdoor festival there, on a
Right.
massive stage. That was interesting. Except I forgot my snare drum, so it's usually to the drummer's snare
no.
drum. So, classic.
Like a guitar. I forgot my picks.
It's
I forgot
like
my strings. I forgot my guitar.
It's like forgot my sticks. So, and then we played with in one of the residencies. We played with Brian Auger. You ever heard of Brian Auger? There was Brian Auger and the Holy Trinity came out. It's around about. It was a big '60s kind of groove sort of thing. Similar, very similar to all the other bands I've previously mentioned. So we played with him at this jazz club that he had, and then we came up here. Because we had a manager and everything. We had this old bad transit van. I thought it was ace, I was 13, 14. And it was kind of like, I'm living the dream. So we'd literally chuck everything into the back of this old blue transit van. And we were going all around the Midlands playing all these gigs. And then we got a gig. He got us gig in Carlisle, of all places. So,
well, Sabbath played there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I didn't realise until I was reading the Sabbath autobiography not so long ago. And it was like there's such a connection to Carlisle. I was thinking, whoa. And so I played this gig, and I've tried to find it since. And I think it's, where Cranston's is down
in Carlisle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like
Fisher Street.
Yeah,
it's like top near where the Brickyard is.
Yeah, and there was a couple of and it was an underground. There was like an underground club, and we played there, and it was kind of like it was all right. We enjoyed it, and I just got drunk on me 1 pint of cider. That's all it took in those days. and then we came home. It was I remember walking around, kind of what I know now is to be by the train station, opposite. There's that sort of crescenty bit, isn't there? Yeah. So I remember going in there and getting kebab and chips before we came home. So
it's got to be done after the gig.
Yeah, you got to be
post-gig kebab.
Yeah,
it's got to be done.
So, but yeah, it was. So that was one of the bigger bands that I was in. It wasn't. We weren't massive, but we had a little following in Birmingham. We played the places that you needed to play. So that was good. And then we had. Then I was in another. Mainly, it's funny. Even though I love rock, and rock is my sort of almost my default style of music I'll go to. All the bands I've been in have all been sort of bluesy bands, which is unusual. But I enjoy playing.
Good for drumming, though.
Yeah, I do. I enjoy because I'm not like although I can play rock, I enjoy kind of listening to the music and becoming part of it rather than just putting a heavy beat behind it.
Yeah,
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because I remember one guitarist telling me like I was the first drummer that had kind of could lower it. When he
go with the music.
Yeah. So when he picked up his guitar, I knew he was going to be sort of going into a solo-y bit. So then
although you can't turn drums down.
No, but you can kind of
so you can
just
bring it down.
mellow
There's
it.
a way to bring it down, not whacking everything.
Yeah,
it's like dynamics. Isn't
yeah.
it?
And he got it. He got what I was doing,
Yeah.
and he says, "You're the first drummer that's ever done that." I was like, "Oh, cheers, man."
So you never had any lessons then?
No. And I think. You see, the trouble is with me, I've got the attention of a goldfish, the attention span of a goldfish.
child.
Yeah, it's kind of like I just get bored so easily. So it was getting to a stage, even with the other band, it was like, oh, fucking hell, we've got to play that same shit again tonight. And
was it all covers then, or were you doing your own stuff?
It was a lot of covers, but there was one or two sort of their own bits and bobs, and their own bits and bobs were a bit sort of early jammy type stuff,
Right.
So it was a bit sort of because there was.
Is there anything out there we could find of you? Do you think anything on YouTube?
I have looked and I can't see anything. I did have an old cassette of it. They were called Marc's Most. And
called what?
Marc's Most, and it was like his mum had. I think his mum had got some sort of a mad old printer, and they'd literally drawn the logo on a bit of paper, and it was kind of like a black outline with Marc's Most in white, if you know what I mean.
Right,
and
yeah.
It was kind of. It was to give this '60s kind of R&B sort of look to it, and so I don't think there's anything out there. But it'd be interesting. Like I say, I've got this cassette. I wonder if it's still there. It wasn't under the stairs.
You should get in touch with the old band members, the old guys. See
I should see if they could do a.
Someone will record
Someone will have
somewhere.
something.
Or even photos from
But
back in the day.
we went into that was another thing. We went to the studio, and I was bored shitless. So we went to this studio in Longbridge, which is the other side of the city, and it was kind of like. They did their. I was in my own little bit because the drums.
Recording an album.
Yeah. It was
of original
recording
material.
an EP, and it was an EP.
Yeah.
So we recorded this EP, but it was on cassette because in those days it was like this was to give out to
like a demo type thing.
A demo tape to give to scouts and
stuff,
because this manager had big plans for us that obviously never happened. So we went into this studio and I was just bored out about my head. You got to think I was maybe 14 then, 15 at the very most. So it was kind of like my attention span was 0.
Did you do the drums first?
Yeah, but that was it, you see.
You
So
bought
I did
after that?
mine, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he kept fucking doing the vocals over and over.
But you've got to. You've got to get it right.
And it was like, you know, when you're a 15-year-old drummer and you've
Yeah.
like done your bit, and then
I'm going home now.
and then you're sat on the other side of the city.
Yeah.
You can't escape, and you can't. You know, you just go and sit in the car of the manager's car, then you come back out, go back in, and they're still fucking wailing on, and it's like, oh Jesus Christ! So,
Did that EP get done then?
yeah, I think that's the cassette that I've got in
right,
the house.
right.
So I'll have to dig
get
it out.
There's a
'cause
way
I know
to get
you
it
can.
digitised.
Yeah, you can. I think Bakewell's do it. I think.
There you go.
Yeah,
Get it
so
done.
I think I'll have to get it done when I
What does it sound like when you listen back to it?
I haven't got a cassette anymore. So.
You have listened to it at some point, though, haven't you?
Oh, I have listened to it. Yeah.
Well, it must have been a long, long time ago.
It's funny because all the cassettes I've got, there was another band doing called Alter Ego. They were like, that was a bit more.
That's a good name for a band,
It
actually.
is, isn't it? And the lad who was in that, who kind of got me into that, he was more of he was a bit of a new romantic, really, sort of rocky, new romantic-y type. Do you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
a bit, so it was a bit more, not futuristic, but that sort of new romantic-y edge to it, rather than a rock. It was a bit rocky, new romantic, if that makes
Yeah.
sort of sense. If anyone out there can ever get that sort of style of music. So, and then another one we were in called Smokestack Lightning. That was quite a good bluesy one.
So you never been in any metal bands then?
No.
You never quite.
No. That there was one I went to. It was in another studio, and it was in Birmingham, and he had this. I can't think what they were called. Was it called? I can't think, but he had this enormous, the biggest kit I've ever. Because normally I'll play like a 4 or 5 shell at the most,
Yeah.
a couple of cymbals, and that was it. So this geezer, he had this like double bass drums, about something like Nico McBrain would have, like about 1 million
Proper
toms
full-on
on it.
metal
Yeah,
kit,
and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
where the fuck? Where do I start? So
How
it was
can
like,
you use all of them?
yeah. So it was like, I had to go on that, and they were kind of rocky, but I don't know, it just didn't.
So have you never got to play like some of your favourite metal songs then?
No, not with
Like in a band situation.
in a band. Yeah, I've played maybe a couple of times up at Plug and Play.
Right, yeah.
And that's just been sort of jamming when they've had like there's been nobody there.
Open
so
mic
it's,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
it's an
Yeah,
open
yeah.
mic, it's open jam. Who can play what? And there was a kit on, so I played there. And then obviously when I'm in a little bit of a band now, and that's more. We do play not necessarily rocky stuff, but a bit rockier stuff. It's not just full on blues stuff anymore. And then a lot of the stuff has been, when you're kind of like warming up, and it goes from like 12-bar bluesy stuff, doesn't it, into a bit rockier stuff, and then someone will come in and do, I don't know, Smoke on the Water or and then, but you'll find that you can get away with like the same beat for a lot of those.
Yeah, they just changed the riff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and I think if I'd have been more committed, I think I could have been a good drummer. But because I've obviously had it it's in me, but it's not in me there to want to do it. You know what I mean? I just
You'd have to
get
dedicate
bored.
a lot of time to it, don't you?
And people. I've watched a thing recently on Sky Arts called something like The Art of Drumming or something, and it was about 5 episodes long, and it was fantastic to watch. And these drummers on it were awesome, and they were saying that they used to spend hours learning all the different rudiments and the paradiddles, and I'm thinking, I just
Dedication,
couldn't.
innit?
Yeah, you see, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, the
And
attention
it's-
span.
I don't. It's like, oh, that'll do. I'd get to a roll so
Yeah.
far, and then everyone else can do a roll, and just the wrists are moving. Whereas I'll get to a roll, and my biceps start hurting because I'm using my full arm, and it's like I'm just going as quick as I can, and then I get. And
That's what your debut album would be called. That'll do.
well, that's what I like in life. That'll do.
That'll
So,
do. Oh well, Tim. Thanks for coming down.
You're welcome,
It's
mate.
been awesome talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
It's been long overdue. I've known you since '99.
You have? Yeah,
A long time.
yeah,
long
yeah.
time. But yeah, no, it's fantastic. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
Cheers.
having me. Cheers, guys. See ya.